25 to order. Chris Stone, would you please call the roll?
Are we doing Public Works first?
No.
We got District Court, all right. District Court, Chairman Curry.
Here.
Commissioner Anderson. Commissioner Avedisian.
Here.
Commissioner Bazzano.
Here.
Commissioner Buell. Commissioner Bush.
Here.
Commissioner Desai.
Here.
Commissioner DeBella.
Here.
Commissioner Drake. Commissioner Gale.
Here.
Commissioner Gardeau.
Here.
Commissioner Gentile.
Here.
Commissioner Healy. Commissioner Hoffman.
Here.
Commissioner Hoheb. Commissioner Holloway.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner LaChance. Commissioner Lester. Commissioner Lewis. Commissioner Magnan.
Here.
Commissioner Mandyke.
Here.
Commissioner Maniscalco. Commissioner Payne.
Here.
Commissioner Patel. Commissioner Salemi.
Here.
Commissioner Stuber.
Here.
Commissioner Taylor.
Here.
Commissioner Torres. Commissioner Wolf. Commissioner Carrier. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there anyone on the line whose name was not called or came on afterwards and didn't respond?
In person, I'm here. Adel here.
No, your name's not on here.
I walked in just as you were calling the next name.
No, this is a typed up list.
You're going to have
See Commissioner
to
Adel.
leave, Andy.
You're in. You're right in. Sorry, Andy.
All right.
All right, we do have a quorum. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Yeah, I got you.
Next on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes of December 9th, 2024. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion, changes, additions, deletions? Hearing none, all in favor
Aye.
and opposed? Motion carried. Public comments relative to agenda items. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to address the board on agenda items? Hearing none, seeing none, move on to Commissioner Workplace Violence Training. Just to remind everyone that during budget deliberations, the board approved funding for such training, and it was agreed that the training would be conducted from an outside source. So here we are tonight, and I'll turn it over to Scott Jellison for an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Paul Mashenko with us. Paul is a author, professional speaker, and business owner over the last 25 years from Atlanta, Georgia. Paul comes to us. We did provide you a copy of his book. He has written 2 books, really on training. And we were looking for someone who actually had experience in training boards similar to ours, working with government, and he has done this training for the U.S. Army, Air Force, Navy, U.S. Department of Justice, and Congressional Office of Compliance. So he has lots of experience. I'm not going to belabor the book or your profile, Paul, but welcome and thank you, and you want to just take it over from here.
Sure, great. Thank you, Scott. First of all, I want to thank everybody for inviting me out to, can you hear me? No, so I got, so am I gonna be, am I behind the podium, basically? Okay, so I have a little bit of room. Can you hear me now? Okay, I'll try not to move too far away from the microphone. Anyways, I want to thank everybody for inviting me out here to talk with you. The subject matter that you brought me in under was workplace violence prevention, and we're going to focus on a particular type of workplace violence. Does violence have to be physical?
No.
No, not at all. How many of you have ever been around someone who is just emotionally or psychologically violent? Okay, absolutely. By the way, this is a very safe environment today, so if I'm saying something and somebody pops into your mind and they're here, please don't point them out. That'd be really, really rude. We don't want to make anybody an example this evening. But we're going to talk about the antithesis, the opposite of violence, and that is something that I've been working with for the past 20-some years, and that's the topic of respect. Now, Julie, can I get my pointer? Oh, it's by here already? Okay. Okay, good. Is that set up into presentation mode? Can you hit that lower?
Right to him so he can walk around.
Here we go. Okay, so the process that we're going to be going through today is called Connecting with Respect. This particular course can be a full day. So in an hour, I want to make sure that we're setting expectations appropriately. We're not going to figure out everything, but for a lot of reasons, this is a great way to start a new calendar year. And so what we're going to do is really explore this from an angle that you probably aren't expecting, and that is the lens of science and biology. One of the things my wife likes to tell people right away when they call us and talk about bringing us in to do training is, you know, what's Paul's style? And she always says, if you're looking for kumbaya, don't bring in Paul. He gets why it's important to treat people with kindness and respect, but how many of you work with people who are analytically very, very strong, but sometimes with their social skills, they're a little bit lacking? Anybody ever work with somebody like that? So we're going to talk about both ends. We're going to talk about things that intuitively feel right, but I'm going to inject enough brain science into what we're talking about so that you know that what we're talking about really does, how we treat each other affects us physically just as well, okay? So our goals, we only have a short amount of time. We have to be done by, I think, 10 o'clock, is that right?
Perfect.
So our goals are modest. The first is to have a little bit of fun. My dad told me years ago, he said, Paul, we're not here for a long time, we're here for a good time. How many of you agree with that? Now, he told me that as I was on my way out the door to my freshman year in college, which was probably not really good from a timing standpoint, but it's something that I've tried to remember as an adult educator, because what we now know about having fun when we're learning is that the brain actually codes it differently. When we're actually we've let our guard down and we're opening up and we're listening to somebody and we're having fun at the same time, the brain actually stores that information at a deeper level, but it's also easier to recall that when we want to use it. And so even though the stuff we're going to be talking about is very serious, I'm going to try to do it in a way that allows us to have fun too. We're going to explore what true respect is and how it supports world-class business results, whatever the business is or whatever the organization is. A lot of times people will think, well, you've never worked with an organization like ours. I call that condition terminal uniqueness. Nobody's like us. But when you get right down to the science and biology of it, we're not all that different. The things that motivate us usually stay within a pretty narrow band. So we're going to talk about what those things have in common. Examine the impact of both respect and disrespect, and look at what both of those do to how we function together as a team, but also as an extended, how that affects our stakeholders outside of this room as well. Share and practice a powerful technique. You're going to actually be doing some skill building this evening. I'm going to have everybody practice 2 different types of exercises that will allow you to very quickly figure out how to build a bridge of respect to another person, literally in a matter of minutes. And once you know how it works, it will be your choice when to use it. But I promise you, it's not, there's no real trick to it. And when you learn it, again, it's something that'll make sense and you'll be able to use right away. And then the other thing is practicing a technique for navigating polarizing conversation topics. How many of you would agree that we are in kind of a partisan mode politically in this country right now? How many of you have stopped talking to certain people because you didn't see eye to eye with them on their politics? Anybody? It's sad in a lot of ways, but in another way, it leaves open the door for opportunity. If we can figure out how to talk about things that we have very different opinions about and do it in a way that actually allows us all to learn a little bit more about each other, then we can maybe have those conversations without needing to just ignore them all the time. Because sometimes if you ignore a problem, it does what? It just gets worse, right? And so I want to make sure that you have at least 2 skills that you can use right away when we're done. Now, the other thing I'm going to ask for you is to put yourself for tonight in what I call a growth mindset. For some of you, this will be a no-brainer because this is how you engage the world anyways. But for others, if this doesn't seem like you, try it on for size, at least for the next hour. Determined to become a human becoming. Not a human being, but a human becoming. What's the difference? What's the difference between a human being and a human becoming? Anybody? Somebody over here? Because you were looking at me. Because you're looking at me. What do you
On
think?
your way to being.
So on your way to being, but also constantly evolving, right? We all showed up here tonight with a collection of life experiences and perspectives and opinions. And if we get locked in time, then we stop growing, right? And so what I'm going to ask you to do is just for tonight, even if things you see them a little bit differently, and that's fine, at least suspend judgment. Be humble and proactive with an action plan. I'd like everybody in here to make a commitment to walk out and learn and promise yourself that you're going to practice at least 1 or 2 things that we talk about today. Look for opportunities to compliment your team members. If you have comments and we talk about something and you say, yeah, you know what, we've got some of our employees or some of our commissioners who do that already. How many of you don't like to get recognition for doing something well? How many of you get far too many compliments for a job well done? Every time your cell phone goes off, you're like, here it comes, another text, another attaboy, another. So tired. I wish Scott would just knock it off, right? Said nobody ever. So use this as an opportunity. If you have an opportunity to give somebody a shout out tonight, do it. Give each other the benefit of the doubt. I know that anytime you have a group of people this large, and many of you who have worked with each other for years and years and years, stuff happens. Baggage accumulates. So I'm going to ask you for tonight, give each other the benefit of the doubt when people are sharing things. And always look for ways to improve. If you hear something and you hear me saying, and you hear yourself saying, I know who he's talking about, and it's not me. Take a step back and say, well, maybe it could be me. Has it ever been me? And if I'm married, would my spouse say, yeah, that's you, right? So that's always a good litmus test. Lots of things we could be talking about, but we're going to focus on respect tonight. So let me ask each of you to think about that. Why? What value would it provide this organization and your stakeholders by better understanding the science behind respect? Anybody? You guys can jump in too. What might be some of the benefits in unpacking and exploring the concept of respect?
Innovative organization.
You said a couple of things. We work better together, less friction, but you also said we become more innovative, right? When I'm treated with respect, that tells me that people in here want to hear what I have to say, and I'm more likely to raise my hand and share what I'm thinking. How many of you have ever been in an environment where there were a bunch of people and there was a question and you had an idea, but you were reluctant to raise your hand because you didn't want to be judged and you didn't want people to you didn't want people to come after you. Well, in a respectful organization, you have more people raising their hand. Let's get one more idea. What would be another reason for pursuing this topic of respect and exploring it? Anybody? By the way, I'm really patient. I'll wait you out.
It's gonna go an hour and a half unless you.
Somebody else, one more reason. Why else?
Come on, guys, this meeting's gonna go really long. Get some answers out here for him.
John, any ideas? Help me out here, John. Either of you.
He's an attorney, what do you know?
Let me ask you this. How many of you have ever seen damage done by disrespect? Okay. Well, that should be another. Here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to think about respect as being an umbrella. And as most of you probably know, umbrellas come in all shapes and sizes, right? There's a little, how many of you have seen the little pop-up umbrellas that sometimes women will carry in their tote bags, or a guy will throw in his briefcase or something like that? And then you've got this huge golf umbrella, so you can get like a whole family of 4 under, and the dog and the cat and everything. So respect comes in all shapes and sizes, in each one of us. And the whole purpose, and I'm going to use the metaphor of an umbrella because it actually shows what respect does for us. Respect protects us. It inoculates us from things going on outside the organization really, really well. Here's a couple things. First of all, respect supports feelings of inclusion and belonging in the organization. When people actually are members, whether you're a commissioner or you're an employee of the organization, you feel like you actually belong there. You feel like you have a family when it comes to work. It's tied very closely to this concept of employee engagement. How many of you have heard of the term employee engagement? Anybody? What does engaged employees mean? What does that mean? Does it have to do with jewelry? No. When we have engaged employees, what does that tell us? That they're emotionally connected to the success of the organization. When we have people who are engaged, that means when they get up and they go to work, they care about the work they do. They want to be successful. They want the organization to be successful. Psychological safety, which is knowing that when I do go to work, that it's safe for me to bring my full authentic self, whoever that is, and all the things that make me unique. I don't have to hide. I don't have to pretend I'm something else. Respect helps us create that. Organizational pride, a sense of pride for belonging. Loyalty, which is going to tie to something else in a second. But here's probably the most important thing from a high level. It builds trust. If we don't have trust, maybe we never built it in the first place, or maybe trust has eroded in some cases with each other. One of the things that we know is respect is one of the most powerful building blocks for creating that again. But what about me as an individual being part of this organization? What do I get from this? Well, how about this? We're healthier. There is absolutely probably some of the most compelling evidence that I've seen just in the past 2 years has come out about how respect actually physiologically is actually living longer, living healthier, and living happier too. And I'll share that with you a little bit later. It's easier for us to recruit new talent for the organization. More importantly, people stay. How many of you have ever seen good people leave an organization because of the way they were treated? Anybody? That, in this hiring market right now, it is hard enough to find good employees, let alone holding the exit door open for them because we didn't treat them in a way that made them feel respected. So respect helps us keep good employees. Fewer EEOC issues if we have had those. Happier constituents. Whoever is a stakeholder of the work done by this group, they get a better version and a higher level of output too, because this machine, if you will, is working much more efficiently. And that's because we're just more productive. So what I'm going to ask each of you to do is think about, what can I do to actually maybe extend my umbrella of respect to cover a few more people when we're done today, right? And by the way, don't think of this just as professional development. How many of you have ever experienced disrespect in your personal life from individuals? Most of us have. Most of us have. I had one of my favorite phone calls I ever took. One of our corporate clients is a company most of you have heard of, Johnsonville Sausage. So how many of you have had a Johnsonville bratwurst at one point or another? So I had a call from in my office from a woman named Amanda, And she said, Mr. Mashenko, you don't know me, but you know my husband is Corey. He works at Johnsonville. I said, oh, how can I help you? She goes, oh, no, you already have. I'm calling to thank you. I said, thank me for what? And she said, well, they're rolling out your respect training at Johnsonville right now. And she said, my husband is obviously taking it to heart because I have a much better version of my husband, and my kids have a better version of their father now as well. And so if you hear something today that even though we're providing it as part of your professional development, if it rings like it would be appropriate in your personal environment too, take it and use it there. The bottom line is this: it actually drives business results. I can promise you pretty much after 20 plus years of research on this subject that even a little bit of attention focused on how we engage each other and the quality that we engage each other will lead to observable and significant and measurable business results. Now, I have a warm-up exercise I'd like everybody to do. You have a handout, by the way. Diane, you have a handout. At the very top of the handout on the first page, I'm going to ask you to do about a 30-second thinking exercise. And all I want you to do is think back to who you learned how you're supposed to treat others from. It could have been parents, grandparents. It could have been a first boss or supervisor. But somebody help me out. Take about 30 seconds, and I want you to write down, who did you learn, who do you remember learning how to treat other people from, and what did you learn? See what you come up with. Take a few more seconds. Now, as you're finishing, let me ask you, who picked your parents? Okay, what's one thing, what's your first name?
Andy,
Andy? Andy, what's one thing you remember learning from your parents?
they always taught me to treat others as I expected to be treated myself.
Yeah, how many of you have heard of the golden rule? Treat other people the way I want to be treated. Has anybody ever heard of the platinum rule? Anybody ever heard of the platinum rule? Platinum rule we're going to talk about a little bit later is a little bit more challenging. The platinum rule says treat other people the way they want to be treated, which is actually in an increasingly diverse workplace, maybe the more appropriate frame of mind to pick. Because do you think everybody wants to be treated like you and I do? No. And how are we going to figure out how somebody wants to be treated? You get to know them, right? As we develop relationships, we get to know more about each other. We actually make the time to learn about each other more appropriately. Well, let me ask somebody else. Who else picked their parents? Your first name again is?
Jackie.
Jackie, tell me what you learned from your parents.
Top down, you treat people the same.
So kind of the equity. Whatever you are for whatever you do for this person, do the same for the next person. Very good. Anybody pick their grandparents? What's your first name? James. What did you learn from your grandparents?
To always be polite.
Always be polite. And what happened if you forgot that? Were there repercussions?
Yeah, there were repercussions.
I remember
Stern
those
talking
too.
to.
Anybody pick a non-family member? I picked I'll talk a little bit later about one of my daughters at Ohio State. Who did you pick?
I didn't, I mean, obviously family comes first because that's where you, but I thought we were in the context of like public kind of thing, not family necessarily, but certainly at school. And I wouldn't say any one teacher, but, and just, for total disclosure, I went to Catholic school, so, but, all sort of all of what you'd expect about respect and about, how you address other people and talk to other people was all based on that. And I was also later in scouting, and as a Boy Scout, and it was it was in scouting for a while, so I was there for a while. And it's the same sort of thing. It's just, all about respect of not just people, but, with the institutions and so forth, around you, so.
Absolutely. I was in scouting also. A scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly. Remember all those?
Courteous,
So,
I do.
yes, as a matter of fact. And so here's the thing. If you were to close your eyes, whoever you wrote about on your handout, if you close your eyes and you think about them right now, how clearly do you remember interacting with them, whether they're still alive or not? How many of you have very, very crystal clear memories about these people? Most of us do. Most of us do. These are people, in some cases, that we spent many years with. But here's what a brain scientist would tell you. Most of us are blissfully delusional in the accuracy of our memories. We think we remember like a little video camera, but that's not exactly how the human brain remembers things. There's only about 5% of the overall population that has the ability to remember facts and details the way they actually happened going past 6 weeks. You know what the rest of us do? We fake it. We think we're really accurate, but we fake it. And the only thing it takes to show us that we don't always remember things, at least the same way other people do, is think about the Thanksgiving dinner table when you're talking with your siblings and you're recalling events from when you grew up, and they remember it differently than you do. Obviously, they're wrong, right? Because we know we remember it correctly. But what we really remember, what we call memory, is actually divided up into a lot of different pieces. The part that is most persistent in our memory has to do with the part of the brain called the limbic system. Has anybody ever heard of the limbic system? The limbic system is our emotional recorder. The very first thing, when I say anybody's name, and especially if you knew them personally, what do you think the very first thing your brain would lock in on about that person? How you felt when you were around that person. And the more time you spent with them, the stronger that feeling becomes. How many of you have certain individuals, because of the way they imprinted on you in the past, if you saw them tomorrow walking down the sidewalk, you would turn your head and go in a different direction because you really wouldn't care to interact with them again, right? We all are forming memories in the minds of the people that we interact with, and we're going to give that memory a name. It's our legacy. Every time you and I engage each other or another person, we're leaving a little chunk of ourselves behind in that person's brain. And that was, how did they feel when they were around us? Do you think that matters when we work together? Why is that important? Why does how we remember each other emotionally, why does that affect us at work? It goes back to something I talked about earlier, which is trust. That's the very first thing your brain, before we're going to interact again, my brain wants to know, is it safe to work with you? Right? Is it safe for me to share how I really feel? Is it safe for me to disagree? Is it safe for me to even share my ideas, or are you going to steal my ideas and claim them for your own, right? And so here's the thing. You have a choice to make. Whether you do it intentionally or accidentally, you are still building a legacy with the people around you every single day. My challenge to you is to be intentional about that. When people see you coming down the sidewalk or walking into this building, do you want them to be like, oh gosh, here he is again? Or do you want them to stand up tall and straight and look forward to shaking your hand or giving you a hug? Whatever it is, it's appropriate for your particular relationship. Just recognize we are imprinting on each other every single day, and that has a profound impact on how well we work together. Not only about trust, but also how much I'm willing to go out of my way to help you be successful, and hopefully you doing the same thing for me. So let's talk a little bit about definitions now. When I say the term respect, what does that mean to anybody? When you hear the term respect, what comes to mind?
Certain behavior.
Certain behaviors, like what? Golden rule. That's okay.
Honest.
Being honest. Okay. What else? Golden rule, being honest. Well, let me put I'm going to put a graphic up here. with another word, and it's sometimes a word that's talked about when we talk about respect, but I don't know if they're the same or not. You tell me. Respect and tolerance, the same or are they different? What do you think? Different. How many of you think they're different? Okay. I would agree with you. I think they're different. How are they different?
You can tolerate somebody but not respect them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Does that mean tolerance is a bad thing?
No.
No, not at all. Here's the difference. How many of you are married or have a significant other that you share a home with? Okay. For those of you who are, imagine that you went home after this particular incredibly powerful meeting we're going to have tonight, and your significant other is waiting for you. Hey, how was the meeting tonight? And you light up like a candy. You're like, oh, it was fantastic. First of all, they brought this guy Mashenko, and he was incredible. But you want to help me realize just how much I really feel tolerated by the people I work with. How many of you would get a strange look if you said that? If you had to give being tolerated a letter grade, what letter grade would you give? It's not Dean's List material, is it? It's not a failing grade. Maybe C- or something like that. Respect is a little bit more. But here's the fundamental difference between the two of them. Tolerance is completely passive. When I don't, if you and I have to be in the same room together, but we don't necessarily have to work together, that's what we will choose to do. You do your thing, I'll do my thing, and we just kind of put up with each other. That's kind of what tolerance in some ways means. It just means we put up with each other, right? Now, every time we actually start interacting with another person, that actually takes energy. By the way, tolerance is not a bad thing, but here's the other thing I want to make sure you understand. Your brain and my brain, we have a default. We like tolerance. You know why we like tolerance? Because if I'm really busy and I got a bunch of other stuff to do, I don't have to do a whole lot to be tolerant. All I got to do is put a zipper on my mouth most days, and I can say, see, I was tolerant. I didn't say anything mean today about anybody, right? Okay, good for you. But the moment that we actually have to start interacting, we can go in one of two directions. We can go to the left, or we can go to the right. Now, anthropologically, here's what most of us do. We have today, when I say we, I mean human beings, we have pretty much the same brain we had 50,000 years ago. Biologically, we have changed very little. In fact, most researchers would tell you that our prehistoric ancestors were just as capable of flying a 747 if there were 747s back then. And in some ways, they were actually smarter than we were because they had to be in that environment in a hostile environment that they subsisted in. But if I'm suspicious, that means I don't know enough about you to feel like I really want to respect you. Here's what the natural progression of behaviors is. We avoid people. How many of you have actually gone out of your way to avoid people? It takes energy. Some days it takes planning. And some days it takes a degree of innovation. Like you get to the parking lot the same time that other person does, and you don't want to walk in with them. So what do? You take out your phone and you pretend like you're texting somebody. You let them get a head start, and only then do you leave and head out, right? And so you actually have to spend energy to avoid people. But here's the other side of that coin. If you've ever been the person who was being avoided, did you know that takes energy too? That takes energy in the form of worry. Like, how come they're not engaging me? How come they're not asking my opinion? Why are they excluding me? We start to worry about our own safety in those situations. So regardless of whether you're doing the avoiding or being avoided, that actually takes energy from the human brain. How many of you have seen it go so far that it actually goes past avoidance and it becomes hostility? People reach the conclusion that the things that make us different are not tolerant, they are not compatible with each other, and so we resort to hostility. Okay? What are some of the forms now? Most of the time, hostility doesn't. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't take a physical form. But what other kinds of hostility could there be besides physical violence? Give me some other examples. Anybody? An example of hostility.
Bullying.
Say that again.
Bullying.
Bullying. Oh, yeah, bullying. So you've got bullying. How about passive aggressive behaviors? How about spreading rumors or gossiping about people? How about giving somebody the side eye while they're talking in front of a group? Kind of rolling your eyes at them, right? Those are subtle, but those are forms of hostility. Let's define hostility very broadly. Hostility is any behavior I would engage in that is intended to harm another person or a group in any way, physically for sure, but emotionally, reputationally, or from a productivity standpoint, doing something that makes it difficult for another person to do their best work. Those are forms of hostility, and not only do they take a lot of energy to perpetrate, but they take even more energy to defend against. How many of you have ever found yourself at the receiving end of somebody else's hostility, and it was draining, it was depleting, right? Here's the worst part about hostility. You don't even have to be directly involved with it to be affected by it. How many of you have been caught as collateral damage with other people going after each other? And so here's the thing. There's a lot of energy that's being spent, whether it's avoiding or being hostile. And what do we get as an organization? Energy isn't free. So what do we actually get from that? Nothing. Zero. It is lost and wasted energy. And I'm going to ask every person in this room to think about that. The next time you witness hostility, or maybe or even on one end of it or the other, ask yourself, is this helping anybody? Because we spend the human brain does not have an endless supply of energy. When you get up in the morning, some of you have breakfast, some of you skip it and wait for lunch, whatever. We eat food, has calories, calories get converted to glucose, and my brain burns on glucose. Any energy that I'm spending that's not productive, why would we want to do it? But if we're going to challenge our behaviors and try to get away from avoidance and hostility, we have to remember a different time first. Was there ever a time when we were not governed by suspicion about people who weren't like us, or maybe we thought had different motives? Was there ever a time when we were not suspicious?
Yeah, before we learned that other people were different than us. I mean, I think that's, it's pretty obvious.
Like this picture, right? How many of you have kids or grandkids? You ever seen kids at a playground? What do kids at a playground do? Do they care what you look like? Kids are really simple. Kids are wired to be fundamentally different than adults because that's how they learn the things to become adults. We all go through an incredible phase called curiosity. And this is what happened. And a quick story I'm going to share with you. A couple of years ago, this was right before the pandemic, I was on a Southwest Airlines flight from Baltimore, on my way back to Baltimore from St. Louis. These were my two flight companions. I was an A-list flyer on Southwest. That meant I was usually one of the first 10 or 15 people on the plane. I'd try to get a forward aisle so I could get off quickly on the back side. When I got on the plane, there was already a young girl sitting by the window. I barely paid attention to her because I had a lot of busy adult things to do, messages to check and stuff like that. So as I'm situating myself, I feel a tap on my shoulder. I look up, it's one of the flight attendants. And she says, "Excuse me, sir, would you mind holding would you hold this middle seat?" And I thought, this is Southwest Airlines, you're not allowed to. She goes, "Let me explain. It's another young person flying without their parents. And I thought I'd put them together." I said, "Hey, great idea." Selfishly, I'm thinking more elbow room for me, right? And so the rest of the plane fills up. Finally, the very last person, and it's this kid, his name is Evan, by the way, he shows up, and he's looking lost. He's kind of crosses the jetway, and he's looking up and down, and the flight attendant points in my row, so he kind of comes over. He says, "Excuse me, I think I'm supposed to sit here." He gets up. I get up, let him in. Immediately, boy sees girl. Girl sees boy. He goes, "Hi, I'm Evan." She goes, "Hi, I'm Yvonne, but you can call me Vonnie." Next thing you know, rather than stowing his backpack, which we were all supposed to do, right? They have a whole routine. They had a whole other routine on their own. She pulled hers back out. And they started doing an inventory of all the things they had in their backpacks, starting with the snacks. And they pulled their tables down. I was just kind of watching this with fascination. And they kind of angled their snacks towards each other, signifying what? We'll be sharing. I dare any of you to try that the next time you're on an airplane. Hey, that Jimmy John's looks pretty good over there. Anyways, next thing, what did you bring to play with on this flight? Well, Yvonne had some puzzle books. She had like a stuffed, there's a pink stuffed animal on her lap. But Evan, he was the techno kid. He had one of those Game Boy controllers, first of all, and then he pulled out something from his backpack that I had not seen in years. It was a little gray box about this big. He goes, look what I got. She goes, what's that? He goes, it's called a CD player. How many of you remember the old Walkman CD players? Her next question was, what's it do? You know you're old when, right? He goes, it makes music. And he very proudly pressed a little button and the lid goes, and he goes, it's on this disc here. There's like 12 songs on here. She goes, that is so cool. She goes, but I didn't bring any earbuds. He goes, oh, that's okay. We'll just share mine. How long do you think it took them to get to this place? I'll give you a hint. They hadn't even closed the door to the plane yet. We were still sitting there for like another 5 minutes. And I thought to myself, first of all, and by the way, I asked their permission, then their parents when they landed if I could use their picture, because I had never seen something like this happen so quickly, so organically. Had this been two adults, by the way, who are much smarter and more worldly, what do you think the behavior would have looked like? What would we have been doing?
Nothing.
We'd have been, how many of you have seen people put their headphones on even before anybody else sits down, which means don't bother me, I don't want to talk to anybody, right? But kids are different. Kids are wired differently. So here's my question. What if as adults, we could reconnect with some of that instinctive curiosity that we used to have when we were kids? Because where suspicion causes me to avoid another person, if I'm curious, curiosity tells me that I should do what? I should approach, engage, and explore. Right? And that's the difference. This is what takes us eventually to this place called respect. We start to engage each other. We start sharing important information about each other. And the more we share, the deeper our appreciation for each other becomes, focusing on both the things that we have in common, but also what? The things that make us unique. And that's what takes us to this place called respect. Now, here's the most important part of this. You cannot get to respect unless you are willing to roll up your sleeves and honestly try to get to know the people around you. You can be courteous and polite. You can say please and thank you. But does that mean I respect you? I can't respect you and you can't respect me unless we do what? We get to know something about each other first. Does that take energy? Does it take energy to engage people, talk to them, to listen to them, to share your own story? Yeah, but what's the difference between energy spent on the right versus energy spent going to the left on this model? What's the difference? One is productive, one is not. One actually creates value for you and people around you. The other does not. The other is literally wasted energy. Anything that takes us towards avoidance or hostility, for the most part, is wasted energy, at least in terms of our workplaces, right? This is my dorm director from my freshman and sophomore year in college. His name is Dale Linder. Dale was one of those guys who reminded me, sometimes in ways that made me uncomfortable, that I had to look at things deeper than just on the surface. When Dale and I were in college, he was 5, 6 years older. He was my RA. He was my dorm director at Baker Hall at Ohio State University. And we were walking back from class one day, and he said, Paul, I have a question for you. I said, what's that? He goes, when you look at me as a person, what do you see? I said, I see my friend Dale. Yeah, I'm your friend Dale. But as a human being, when you look at me, what do you see? What do you think he wanted me to say? Anybody, what do you think he wanted me to say? A black man. But I was smarter than that because I knew Dale was trying to teach me a lesson if I said that. So I would say anything but. You're my good friend, Dale. Finally, he just got annoyed with me. He said, Paul, He said, I am a black man. It's okay for you to say that. He said, in fact, if you can't acknowledge that I'm a black man and you are an almost white man, thanks, Dale, he said, you can't really respect me. And that really hurt me. I said, Dale, why do you say that? He said, because if you can't acknowledge at least the most fundamental difference between us, I'm black and you're white. He said, what that means is you're not even going to be a little bit curious to try to understand how my journey through this world is going to be different than yours.
Facts.
I had never stopped to consider that. And do you know why? Because I was taught the golden rule. We're all the same on the inside, but we're not. How many of you would agree that the way we come packaged into this world, be it our gender, be it our sexual orientation, be it our skin color, that those things impact how we're treated by the rest of the world? How many of you would agree with that? So why would we not want to acknowledge those things that are different? And that's what true respect is. It's about taking stock in the things that we have in common, but also the things that make us different and unique. So if I were to give you a definition for respect, here's what it is. It is first and foremost an active process. It is something we have to work at. It is an active process of non-judgmentally, or better yet, curiously engaging people. People from all backgrounds, recognizing that the more somebody is different from you, probably the more time it's going to take to get to know them really well. Let me see, just by show of hands, how many of you have a good friend, someone that you consider a really good friend, and they're really different than you? Okay? Did it take a while to get to know them, to figure those things out? Absolutely. But they sometimes become some of our most extraordinarily important friendships because they give us perspectives that we don't have on our own. We do so, why do we spend this energy? To increase our awareness and our effectiveness. That's the sum gain. When we make that investment in each other, we become more effective and efficient working together. How come? Why do we get more done easily with less effort if we know each other? Anybody? Because we can take shortcuts. How many of you have worked with somebody for so long, you know them, you know what they're going to do before they do it sometimes, right? That's what happens, and that allows us to take safe shortcuts and get work done actually with less effort than it normally would take. But here's the last part of the definition that I want to make sure we all remember. It's done, style counts. It's about engaging each other in a manner that esteems both myself and you. It's the creation of worth, and it's the conveyance of worth and value. I want to make sure that when you and I are done talking, that I have done something to make you feel valued as a human being, as a coworker. How many of you think if we did nothing besides that, that could make a difference all by itself? Simply focusing on trying to make the people around us feel valued. Do you think that would be hard to do? Or just something we have to focus on? What do you think? The only thing that we have to gauge each other on is our behaviors. And if we did small things every single day that led to more people feeling valued in our presence, how many of you wouldn't mind working at a place like that? I know I wouldn't. I wouldn't at all. So what I want to do next with our remaining time is I want to explore what respect looks like, but also what disrespect looks like and how they affect us. And so here's what I'm going to have you do. Also, if you flip over to the back side of your handout. There you go. What I'd like you to do is think back to a time when you distinctly remember being treated by, hopefully, coworkers, hopefully you can think of a work example, in a way that genuinely made you feel respected. And I'm going to actually I'm going to write down some of your answers up here. What I'd like you to think about is, what were the specific behaviors? What did people actually do that made you feel respected? Did they give you recognition for something? Did they thank you? Did they recommend you to somebody else? What did they actually do? And then across from that on the right-hand side, I want you to write down the emotions that you experienced because of that. Made me feel happy, made me feel like I belong, made me feel like a good team member, made me feel smart, whatever. So that's your job. 30 seconds. Think of a time you remember feeling respected. What did the other person do, and how did it make you feel? About another 10 seconds. All right, let's talk about some of the behaviors. What were the actual behaviors that made you feel respected? Anybody?
Active listening,
One more, one at a time.
active listening,
Active listening. Someone who took the time to make sure they were clear on what you were saying. Great. What else? Another one, another behavior.
Requested my opinion.
Ask my opinion. That's one of the most powerful ones. All right, what else? How about compliments? Is a compliment a sign of respect? Sure. Okay, what else? An apology, thank you. When somebody crossed a line and they owned it and they came back and they apologized to me, that's super powerful. Okay, what else? Any others? I'm sure you probably got more, but I'm going to prompt you a little bit. I actually did this class virtually for another group in Wisconsin about 2 weeks ago, right before the holidays. And these were some of the items that they came up with. With public recognition, gave me an attaboy, recommended me to other employees because I was smart, asked me to mentor my peers, asked me to go and have lunch with them, asked my advice, sent me a written compliment. By the way, how many of you have ever received a written thank you note or card from somebody? How long does it take to write one of those out? 2 minutes? If you want to have something with a lot of shelf life, send somebody a thank you card. We get so doggone few of them, we never throw them away. It will sit on your desk for the next 2 years because that'll probably be the next time we get one, right? So we've got thank you notes, written compliments, voted to a state board or a commission, delegated authority to me. These are all similar in that they trigger similar emotions. And that's the next question I have for you. On that right-hand column, what emotions, what words did you write down to describe how being treated with respect made you feel? Anybody?
Great. Great.
3?
Great.
Oh, great. Sure. Great. As Tony the Tiger would say, great. What else?
Happy.
Happy.
Valued.
Thank you. Valued. I was hoping someone would say that. What else? Validated. Excellent. One or two more.
Proud.
Proud. Absolutely. Proud. One more. Any others? I'm going to ask you to put another word at the bottom of yours. It's the word safe. When you treat me with respect, it's a sign that I'm valued in your presence, and I now have at least a little bit of a community around me. Collectively, all these others, whether I go great, happy, valued, validated, proud, energized, whatever, all those wrapped together means I feel super safe in the space that I'm at, okay? Now, what do these things have in common? Respect can be practiced by any action, behavior, or decision that makes another person or group feel recognized, valued, or relevant within their community. That's it. The list of things that we could do to trigger this with people around us, it's endless. It only takes your intention. If you say today, as a commissioner, as a coworker to my coworkers, I'm going to go out of my way to make 3 people, let them know that I value them. How many of you think that would actually make a difference? If we did this, and even half the people in here did this tomorrow, everybody's going to go like, "What's going on around here? This is not who we are." But it could be, right? Here's what you probably didn't know. When someone treated you with respect, you were actually drugged in a way, metaphorically and physiologically. The behaviors that you and I judge as respectful cause the brain to release 3 very powerful neurohormones: serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine. I could go into greater detail on each of those, but let's just say that these are the messengers that tell not just my brain, but the rest of my body, you're in a good place right now. You're around people that make you feel safe and that value you. Here's the important part, is to recognize this is a whole body experience, because each of our major organs, our heart, our lungs, our stomach, our gut, our liver, our digestive tract, all have receiver cells that pick up these messengers. That's why we call them feelings, because it literally does wrap around our entire core. When I'm treated with respect, it affects my breathing. It affects my heartbeat in a healthy way. It allows me to sleep. It allows my food to digest a little bit easier. All these things are the way I was treated. Now, imagine that we had those little happiness neurohormones floating around the whole organization. Do you think that would make a difference? Well, here's what the research shows. Research shows that when we rate above average in terms of the respect that we feel working with each other, number one, people just like their jobs more. Makes sense, right? They enjoy going to work. Work becomes a get to do, not a have to do for them. Improved physical and emotional health. Well, how can you prove that? We know statistically that workplaces that rate high in respect, people call off sick far less often. And when they do get sick, they come back a lot more quickly. When asked to rate our own health subjectively, we're much more likely to say, yeah, I'm healthy as a horse. I'm super healthy. We know that it improves our ability. All of a sudden, our reputation around town starts to change. So our ability to not only attract, but to develop and retain the very best talent goes way up. We become more creative and innovative. Our customer satisfaction, or citizen, however you evaluate the satisfaction that people have in working with customer service, whether it's customer service or it's just the citizens at large, we know that is tied statistically to respect scores. And more productive, profitable if we were in the private sector, but resilient. We get through tough times and changes better because we know we can lean on each other in the process. Here's the best part about this. It's free. It is absolutely free. We can create this simply by challenging what we think is normal and how we treat each other. Now, how are we doing on time?
You've got another 30 seconds.
I could do the quick finish up, or we can spend time actually practicing a little bit. You tell me.
You take your time, within reason.
Okay, within reason. So here's what we're going to do. This is a 5-minute exercise. All you're going to do is you're going to pair up with 1 or 2 of the people next to you. And you're going to keep it simple, all you're going to do is you're going to interview each other for about 2 minutes each. If you can break up into a group of 2, great. If you have 3 people in your group, then you may have to go through these a little bit faster. But all I want you to do, and I'm just going to watch, I'm going to be an observer for 5 minutes, is I want you to take 2.5 minutes each to learn what you can about the person or people next to you. Here's the questions I want you to use. Who is a person whom you are very grateful to, and for what and why? What is one of your favorite memories from your 20s? Why? What made it so amazing? Please keep it clean. Describe a challenge that you've had to navigate as an adult. What did it teach you? How did it change you? And a 4th one, what's an important long-term goal that you'd like to accomplish and why? You will not get through all 4 of these questions. But what's important is that you take a little bit of time just listening to somebody else, and then them doing the same thing for you. All right? So Figure out, I'm gonna give you 15 seconds to figure out who you wanna work with.
So I'm with-
And I'm gonna simply tell you at the 2.5 minute mark.
So what do you think?
Come on, Alvin.
First,
Come over, I'm gonna ask you some questions.
Who to talk to now?
Okay, figure out who is gonna
I'd
go
like to
first.
know. All right,
I know what he asked.
I'm gonna ask the 20-year-old question.
Are you going that way or this way?
Probably gonna work with her and I'll work with Rick. Life-changing experience that you
So,
have.
I'd like to know.
And how did you work?
I'm ready, I'm here for you.
To make you a better person.
I need
Nothing to
time
do with being a
vacations.
public
This is regular
official.
time. I'm
No.
expecting you to
So I would ask you, and I have to
So
think,
go ahead,
so my
you
dad
do whatever you want to
who do I
do.
feel
Tell me.
responsible?
He uses pure.
Who are you grateful for?
I've been eating.
Me, besides
Oh,
me.
pure,
Me,
it's
besides me.
so cherry juice. Believe it, pure
Okay.
cherry juice.
Why?
Just like a
Because
concentrate.
you're special.
Added that some of the,
No, but we I know you don't, how many of you would like to do this for like another 10 minutes instead?
No.
So here's the thing. How many of you learned something about the person or people you were talking to that you did not know before? How many of you found something that you found really admirable about something that the other person shared? Here's what I observed. I was just kind of paying attention to things I could see and hear, the actual behavior. What do you think I saw as you were talking with each other?
Engagement.
Engagement, what else?
Smiles.
Smiles, eye contact, a lot of nodding when one person was talking and one or two other people were listening and nodding. And what does that tell the other person?
Listening.
I'm paying attention. I'm dialed into whatever you're sharing with me, right? How long did it take us to do this? Total of 5 minutes, right? What if I said, hey, what if I challenged you to say, I'm going to see if I can find 2 or 3 chances every day just to get to know the people I work with a little bit better. How much longer would it take you on any given day? 3 or 4 minutes? You're going to go and interact with people anyways. This is just some of the stuff we can do in between. But look what happens if we can kind of create this kind of, and I watched it, started off slow, but then pretty soon people were using their hands and they were laughing. And pretty soon, what those are, by the way, those behaviors, those are all the behaviors that we demonstrate in what we call a pro-social environment. When there is a very small amount of friction that's getting in the way of you hearing what I'm saying, and vice versa, right? But here's what you didn't know. You were actually being a gift. What was the gift you gave each other? Curiosity. I know some of you were thinking, well, I told them all this really fascinating stuff about me that I'm sure they were just dying to know. Yes, maybe. But the real gift you gave each other was your undivided attention, even if it was for only 2.5 minutes. When was the last time someone let you go on and on about yourself for 2.5 minutes and they weren't a paid therapist? Right? We don't get that very often. But here's where this is why this stacks up, and we start taking notice of this. Making the effort to learn about, to acknowledge, to hold in regard the things that are important to other people is one of the most powerful demonstrations. Excuse me. Bless you. Why? Because for me to listen to you tells you, hey, I think you're important enough to pay attention to, right? Now, I'm going to speed through the back part of this a little bit because I don't want to keep you here too late. But we are going to do the same thing real quickly for disrespect. I want you to, on that same page, right below where you just did, I want you to write down, think about a time you distinctly remember being treated with disrespect. What were those behaviors and how did they make you feel also? 30 seconds. All right, let's hear some examples. Give me some examples of disrespectful behavior that made you feel disrespected at least.
You have kids?
Anybody? Being shunned. Being lied to. Shunned or ignored. Lied to. What else? What else? Being interrupted or talked over. What else? How about being blamed or scapegoated? How about having people talk about you behind your back, like gossip, rumors?
You all right, Diane?
How about somebody using foul language in your presence? Or yelling at you, right? There's a whole bunch of things. In fact, here's another list, again, from one of my recent virtual classes. These are things that people have said made them feel disrespected. Being undermined, being accused of doing things or not doing things, getting the brush off, being belittled, having your opinion discounted, not paid attention to, talked over, bypassed for input, cut off in mid-sentence, publicly attacked me. Okay. Disrespect is shown by actions or behaviors or decisions that diminish another person's standing, value, or importance in the community. What emotions did you come up with, by the way?
Anger.
Anger. What else? Anger. How many of you would agree? Demotivated, maybe threatened, maybe confused. Why are they treating me like this? And I'm going to have you add another word at the bottom, unsafe. When we are treated with disrespect, it makes us literally feel unsafe. We all of a sudden start paying more attention to the environment than to the things that we're supposed to be doing, right? Here's what you actually did in that moment. When you were treated with disrespect, your brain went on guard to try to keep you safe. And you activated the fight or flight response. How many of you have heard of the fight or flight response before? There's another word for this. It's called the sympathetic nervous system response. Because of the incredibly severe environment that our prehistoric ancestors grew up in, we are wired to be on guard around anybody or anything that could ever harm us, right? And so when we are treated with disrespect, that's how the brain, it doesn't have to be a physical threat. It can be an emotional threat or a psychological threat. My brain doesn't care. It still releases cortisol and adrenaline in significant amounts. Those compounds, instead of the good stuff, those are what are picked up by our heart, causes my heart rate to accelerate, causes my breathing to expand to get more oxygen into my blood, and then my whole circulatory system dilates so I can either run or fight. But wait a minute, there's no physical threat. Somebody just rolled their eyes when you were talking to this athlete, somebody that you think is important, and your body did the exact same thing. What do you think happens if your body, by the way, how long do you think this response lasts compared to the good stuff?
Long time.
Long time.
The good stuff only lasts for about 15 to 20 years. Then you're left with a nice laughter zone. Cortisol can stick around in your body for up to 4 hours. So something that somebody said or did at 10 o'clock this morning, it's 1:30 in the afternoon and you still haven't let go of it. How many of you know exactly what I'm talking about because you've experienced it before? You go home, you go to bed, you're trying to fall asleep, and what does your brain start doing? Replaying those tapes. That's for a reason. Your brain doesn't want you to forget because it wants you to be on guard for that the next time you're around that person or those individuals. Can you see how 1 or 2 instances of disrespect can all of a sudden start to create a lot of damage? By the way, if you go to work and this becomes your mental physiology, your chemistry, and what do you think this does to the human body, by the way? Well, I'll tell you in a second. But because we have a group of leaders in here, I want to give you some other ones to think about. Because leaders have an outsized or an oversized impact on the people around them. Specifically, some things that leaders can do that are incredibly disrespectful. Breaking their commitments. Making commitments, saying we're going to do this, and then not following through. Or not following through with at least an explanation of why things have to change. Ignoring or circumventing the chain of command. If we have a certain way that we do things here, and this person is in charge of these individuals, to go around those individuals basically confuses everybody. And it says that the chain of commands don't mean anything, so it's just going to be a free-for-all for everybody. Horribly disrespectful. Ignoring the feedback of peers or subordinates. If you are behaving in ways that are harmful to other people, and you refuse to listen to that feedback, that is even more disrespectful. Micromanaging. If someone has a job, give them the support they need and then get out of their way. but to keep looking over their shoulder to make sure they're doing it right. Even if they don't do it just like you, is that okay? Yeah, as long as it gets done, right? Passive aggressive attacks on other people. Little slights, leaving them out of communications that they should be in. Rolling your eyes when they're talking. Little things like that other people notice. And you're thinking, that was just small. Yeah, it might have been just small, but stacked up on top of each other, what do you think starts to happen over time? How many of you have seen little things just literally like spoil the whole bowl of apples, right? Threatening or demeaning others, using your position to basically intimidate, threaten, or cause other people to be fearful, disrespectful, blaming or scapegoating. If you as a leader had some hand in the final product, but you blame people below you for why they didn't get done, that's not very respectful either, right? So we really have to hold ourselves to pretty high standards. When we allow disrespect to fester, here's what happens. All of a sudden, people stop caring about work. Work is like, I got bills to pay. I got a house payment, a car payment. Do I want to go and work with these people? No, but I'm going to do it. We call these people the road warriors, retired on active duty. They show up, and they're there, but how productive are they, right? As productive as they choose to be, because they don't think they're getting a lot. Increased stress-related illnesses. Here's the thing, I'll wrap this up real quickly with on the physical side. Long-term exposure to cortisol is physically toxic to the human body. Going to a place of work where people who are consistently treating you or others with disrespect is like being in an abusive relationship, plain and simply. Long-term exposure to cortisol causes scarring inside our cardiovascular systems. It causes microabrasions which then scar, and they start becoming magnets to plaque. So all of a sudden we have a contributing factor to cardiovascular disease. It leads to the rapid accumulation of belly fat, which is the kind that's really unhealthy and short. It was linked to increased mortality. But the worst thing it does is it literally starts taking our brain apart. Long-term exposure to cortisol actually causes your brain circuits to demyelinate. That means they don't share information with other brain cells as quickly. All of a sudden, it slows down our decision-making, slows down our access to our memory, and so we start being forgetful. After about 60 days in this kind of an environment, we actually start killing brain cells. How many of you just had an aha moment like, oh, wow, that explains a lot, right? But when we say disrespect is toxic, I mean that in the most absolute way. It is physically toxic. All of a sudden, increased absenteeism and accidents, mistakes being made. Do you think people are really sick? As one person from McCormick told me at one of their plants in Texas, I may not really be sick, but I'm sick of y'all. Right? Think about it. Above average employee turnover. And by the way, would employees leave not because you asked them to or they were terminated, but because they didn't want to be around anymore? Usually, what caliber of employees leaves first? The good ones or the not so good ones?
Good.
The good ones. How come? They don't have to put up with it. If I've got a good resume, why in the world would I want to stick around someplace where I wasn't treated very well, right? So I don't. Information hoarding and hiding, customer or constituent satisfaction at the end of the day, below average productivity or resilience. All because of the way we treat each other. I like starting a new year with a focus on respect because it is the one thing that every single person in this room can make improvements on immediately. Starting today, starting tomorrow morning. It just takes intention. I'm going to short circuit your learning a little bit. On your handout, you have something on the back page called the 12 Rules of Respect. Most of you have also been given a little kind of it's a double-sided business card thing. It says the 12 Rules of Respect on here. This is just a little portable version of something that you can take and look at going forward. When I was writing the respect effect, which a lot of you see on the table in front of you, I partnered with a lot of our clients, and we really came up with what we think is a good list of rules to try to follow. What I would ask you to do is simply use your pen or highlighter and put a check mark next to the ones that you think would be most helpful to you. We do have some extra ones up here, so if any of you guys didn't get any, there's a whole extra stack up here. Okay. By the way, I forgot to mention it. Most of you at the table, the commissioners, you also received 100% pure gold. Well, not really. Respect pin. And that's simply a reminder. I know it's going to eventually get stuck to your refrigerator, and that's okay, but for at least the first week, try to remember to put it on. And it's simply a reminder when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you're washing your hands. What am I doing to role model respect in this organization? A couple of things I want to talk about that just draw your attention to. Rule number 1, be aware of your nonverbal and extraverbal cues. Remember, it's not just what you say, but it's your whole presentation that people pay attention to. So even if you say respectful things, but the rest of your body language is like, right? Which are people going to believe more? Why? The body language. Why? Because it's an older form of communication and it's harder to fake. Number 2, show curiosity over the perspectives of other people. Even when you think you know the answer, still be curious. Number 4, become a better listener by shaking your butt. Notice 1 T, not 2. All that means is be careful with how you use the word but when you're debating the pros and cons of things. Because the word but does what? If you hear what somebody's saying, John, I hear what you're saying, but what does but mean? I disagree, I find fault with it. Can we disagree without devaluing that person's perspective? You say things like, what about the word however? No, however is just but with a bow tie. But I want to say, hey, John, I hear what you're saying. At the same time, what if we also considered this, right? And so you can share your ideas without devaluing other people's. I'm going to skip this next one. This is I call it the heart method. This is how to have those. Remember we talked about how to have difficult conversations. You can snap a picture of this if you'd like or screenshot it. But here's what heart stands for. Even when there's a highly controversial subject, make sure, especially if you want to even have a conversation. There are some conversations where the juice isn't worth the squeeze. Right? So if you actually think you can have a meaningful conversation, make sure to listen to the other person's perspective, explore without judging their rationale. Hey, you know what? Thanks for sharing that. Help me understand why you see it that way. Number 8, or A rather, acknowledge and validate the other person's feelings. Hey, you know what? I get why you feel that way. At the end of the day, that's what most people just want. It's a little bit of validation. And then here's where the trick comes in. Relate your views with the connection point. You know, I know family is really important. It's really important to me, and that's why I see it this way, right? And so you find something that you both agree on a value, but you just show how that value might be explored from a different perspective. And then thank the other person for sharing their perspective. So just a short model for having difficult conversations. Now, I want to wrap up. Let's see, I want to skip through these last ones here. Oh, here's this one. This one we came up, someone mentioned earlier. Never hesitate to apologize. We all cross boundaries on occasion. Do you think that makes you a stronger leader or a weaker leader by being able to apologize? Stronger. Way stronger. Because it suggests humility. And it suggests that you're putting yourself at the same level as the other person. The last one, smile. Okay? Smiling is a nonverbal form of communication. But when somebody greets, you come to their office or you're meeting them, and they greet you with a smile, what does that smile tell you? What does it tell you? They're approachable. They're willing, they're eager to hear what you have to say and talk about. Okay, the only time this may not mean that is if the other person is a salesperson. Then just run. Right? Now, I want to wrap up with 2 real quick points. How can commissioners make a difference? What's the longest term somebody's been on a commissioner in this room so far?
75 years. No, how is it, Bill?
I feel like
50 years.
Is it really 50 years?
Mr. Rebella.
Fantastic. So here's my
There was a
suggestion.
break in there, I think.
You have to figure out what this looks like to you. First of all, don't be bystanders. If we've talked about anything that resonated with you, don't be a bystander. Stand up and advocate for and champion inclusion and respect as being part of the overall work, the way the organization works. Let this be known through your behaviors with each other and staff on occasion, Let them know this is something that's important to us, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable. Walk the talk, starting with each other. If there's one thing that I know about most organizations is that people who are at mid-level and lower level, they are always paying attention to what their leaders are doing. And the first thing they want to, if we want them to treat each other with respect, it has to start with this group first. If they watch you doing it and they know you're paying attention to it, there's a good thing they will. Investigate and address reports of disrespect quickly and decisively. If you know people, if we know that we have somebody in there who is causing unrest and causing people to feel unsafe, do you think there's a good chance it's impacting the output of the organization? Absolutely. Finally, be specific and create your own respect expectations. I've only been here, we're going on a little bit past an hour, but we're just scratching the surface right now. What I would challenge this group to do as a follow-up is map out for yourself. We call it a code of cooperation. What do we want respect to look like for us? What behaviors do we want to see more of with each other? And what behaviors do we need to get rid of because we know they're taking us in the wrong direction? That doesn't have to be the same list for everybody else, but if this group says this is important for us to talk about and important enough for us to actually codify as a document, that tells everybody else that it's important too. Wrapping up, we talked about respect, but here's kind of the downstream why this is so important. If we get really good at practicing respect with each other, a natural byproduct is that we create an environment of trust, an environment where people feel they can let their hair down, they can be themselves, they can be authentic with each other. And that's when we get to this place called friendship as well. How many of you have become friends with somebody that you work with? If you are friends with somebody else in this room, even though you were brought together by professional circumstances, but you've become friends, raise your hand with anybody in this room, okay? That's good. That is a healthy extension. We spend so much time at work that it would be a shame if we didn't. But I want to share with you the value of trust and friendship. One of my most recent reads is a book that came out just at the end of last year called The Good Life by Robert Waldinger and Dr. Mark Schultz, who have since then become active colleagues of mine. They are the guardians of the longest study of human health and happiness currently in existence. And it was started by Harvard University back in the 1930s. So this has literally been 80 years, 80 plus years in the making. And they started with a group of about 300 white men only. That has since grown to become over 2,500 people when they started bringing in spouses and children and next generation and grandchildren. And what they wanted to find out was what actually caused people to be not only happy, but to live long, too. What do you think they found? What do you think they found?
Live longer.
What's that?
Live longer
When you're what?
when you're more respectful.
Yes, but indirectly. It was really about friendship. Here's what they said. They said warm, connected relationships in all of the places that we spend time, including work, protect us against the slings and arrows of getting old. In our 86-year study, those who were the most satisfied with their relationships at the age of 50 were consistently the healthiest, mentally and physically, at the age of 80. At the end, we are social creatures. Respect helps create a space where we can be in healthy, nurturing relationships with each other. I don't know about you, one of my goals is to become a centenarian. I want to be one of those guys, 90 years old, driving in the left-hand lane, 55 miles an hour with my turn signal on, just because. And when people honk at me, I just want to wave to them. Say, hey, how you doing, right? But it's nice to know that we can be mutually really helpful to each other and living to be not only old and healthy, but happy at the same time. It goes back to what I said my dad told me when I was a kid. We're not here for a long time. We're here for a good time, but only if we remember that we're here together. All right, so that's what I've got for you tonight. Thank you so much for making some time available. probably going to take a little bit of a break now, but I'll stick around for any questions or anybody, if anybody wants to chat a little bit, I'll be here.
Paul, I have one question for you, not pertaining to the subject matter itself, but everyone in this room had the opportunity to hear you, see the board being filled out. Those viewing this meeting did not have that opportunity. They could hear it, but unlike the cameras on the commissioners, when we make even the slightest noise, the camera zooms on us. So everybody out in the viewing audience saw an empty podium and a blank board. By any chance, do you have this component of your presentation on a file that we can?
I probably have several webinars with other clients that we might be able to.
All right, if you'd be so kind and work it out with administration, and if you can provide us for that, and we can come to some agreement if necessary.
I'll work with Jamie and get something figured out.
Yeah, and everybody is getting one of Paul's books. So, Paul, I thank you very much for your time and for coming so far to give us this presentation. So, with that, before we move in, and just to remind everyone here, this is a joint meeting simply because we're dealing with some very important issues, and my belief is we did not want to see a long presentation at Public Works and then have the same exact presentation at the district board meeting. So when we recess at this meeting and go into Public Works, those not on that committee, please stay in your seats so that we go back into the district meeting. We'll have all the information needed and can just move forward in an expeditious manner. With that, I'm going to take a recess for 10 minutes. The gavel's going to fall by that clock on the wall when the big hand gets on the 3. So thank you again. All right, we're going to go back into special meeting, the district board. And we're now on number 7, report from district chairman. I have nothing to report.
Chairman, if I may,
Yes?
we'll keep it short.
No, it's not on the, we're going to move through the agenda, so when we get to that point.
Can't make a comment under your chairman's report?
No. Next is report from chief executive officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I regret to have this conversation in this room, but I think it's important to defend myself as a CEO. I'll let the district council defend himself, but I need to defend my staff. And there's been an ongoing aggression from Commissioner Taylor on myself and specifically my staff. I am not concerned about Scott Jellison as a CEO, but I am concerned about my staff. My staff has told me on numerous occasions, and I think some of you may have witnessed, there's been a number of occasions that myself, district council, or staff been accused of or maligned in some way, somehow, on what we have done or haven't done. Most recently, the last PPI meeting, we have been talking about the climate study. The climate study was, as you all know, we talked a lot about what and how we were going to do that. And at the last PPI meeting that the consultant was at, I think it was August, there was a discussion about how the data would be analyzed and would be provided to the board and to the PPI and to the board. And without getting into all the details, there was a comment by the chairman, Curry, that to clarify the data, raw data was going to be reviewed by the consultant. The consultant was going to, the next time we saw this was going to be the final report. No one made an objection to that. That was the way in which the report was going to be received to the district. And then we had a request from Commissioner Taylor for the PPI agenda to do the complete opposite, which was to review the raw data and the essay questions or answers to questions that staff has written down within the context of the form. Commissioner Chairman Curry clarified that's not what we're doing. We are going to receive the report, and it's not appropriate for at PP&I to review data that we told the employees was going to be confidential. Now, if you can imagine, if you read a comment from an employee and you know the people that work here, you could probably summarize who said that. And that's not what we want. We want our employees to feel comfortable. And I used at the PPI meeting, I used myself. If somebody wants to talk bad about Scott Jellison, it's so unfair to expose that person's comment about Scott Jellison, because I may know who that person is. And there may be a comment about a commissioner. There might be a comment about managers. But we promised, the chairman sent a video and an email to all the employees that said, we will not expose, and you will have complete confidence that the MDC is not going to expose anything you say as part of this process. In response to that, and I'm not going to go through the details because we don't have enough time, but in response to that, Commissioner Taylor wrote a very scathing email, letter, I apologize, which basically accuses district council, myself, and the chairman, and again my staff, of interfering in the process. I purposely have said at this board, I am not involved. I don't even know, I haven't talked to the consultants except for when we've had them here in this committee meetings or board meetings. But to continue to suggest that my staff is not professional, it cannot be trusted, that they are intervening and trying to manipulate the results of this exercise is inappropriate, to say the least. It's not factual, especially to put it in writing. It's not factual. So this is not the first time we've dealt with this with Commissioner Taylor. There's been multiple occasions, which I won't get into, but there's been multiple occasions where he has suggested something to this effect about my staff not being trustworthy. We've used multiple words in multiple meetings regarding our staff's inability to do certain things, has really maligned the HR department, our procurement department, and our affirmative action officer. And this is not appropriate. And unfortunately, I have to be the one to bring this to your attention. And I know you've all seen this, as I've seen it. But I have no recourse. I have no recourse. Our staff has zero recourse. We have to just sit here and accept it. So that's a problem for me. I mean, it's a problem for this organization. Mr. Taylor has suggested, Commissioner Taylor has suggested that I, district council, my staff, is maligning his reputation, which is the complete opposite. It's the complete opposite. Another concern I have is there's been a number of emails, which I tried to stay away from. Commissioner Taylor had requested private emails for the commissioners to send emails to the commissioners, and I, again, did not pay attention to it until Commissioner Taylor started to bring the CEO into the conversation. And it's important for this board to understand my position in what Commissioner Taylor is saying. He continues to bring up the Sandler bills. the IAC report. He continues to talk about the committee of three, which I truly don't understand how that is relevant in any way to the IAC report, because if you read the IAC report, it's very clear who said what. But the most important part of this is that he's suggesting that the district council and Scott Chilson, the CEO, did something wrong. We didn't do anything wrong. I encourage you to read the IAC report. I encourage you, I'm going to say one thing about the committee of three. The committee of three was a discussion point at a PPI meeting that Commissioner Taylor chaired. So he's fully aware of how that committee was formed. I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot more to talk about, but I won't, out of respect for this organization. But it's got to stop. It's got to stop. We all agreed. I called half of you, and Chris Stone called the other half. And we asked you to let's table the IAC report, and then the board adopted it. And everybody agreed to walk away from this report and move forward, except Commissioner Taylor is continuing to write emails about the CEO and the district council utilizing private emails, not willing to talk about it in this forum, in a public forum, so that the public has a chance to say what they might want to say about this topic. It's not fair to the CEO and to district council for a commissioner, especially the chairman of PPI, to be, I have no idea whether it's a issue. I don't care. That's not my relevance here. That's a legal issue. But I am concerned that the chairman of PPI is actually bad-mouthing the CEO privately. To all of you, I represent 29 commissioners and 4 non-member town commissioners. I don't represent one commissioner or 2 commissioners. I represent all of you. And it's not fair for the chairman of PPI to be sending out emails asking and utilizing private emails and circumventing the public forum. I documented this in April 19th of 2023, and I'm not going to read this document. You all got a copy of it. There's a lot of detail in there, but it outlines the issues associated with a procurement for PPI, which in fact, Commissioner Taylor interfered in a selection process with my staff from procurement to try and get his consultant selected. He tried that, and most importantly, after I called him out on that, out of respect for this board, I said I was not going to bring this to the board. I was not going to bring it to DEEP. I was not going to bring it to EPA, but what I wanted out of it was an ethics code. This committee, this board adopted an ethics code. And that ethics code was adopted because of the actions by Commissioner Taylor. I'm not effectuating his reputation. He is. Another instance where Commissioner Taylor maligned our staff, and they felt maligned. That's the most important thing. They feel maligned. Is, as I've said before, our staff spent 2,000 man-hours, woman-hours presenting the management study. Every department came in front of you and talked about what they do. And he said, I'm not going to get into the details, but he said a lot of things that made the HR department cry. He made the procurement department cry back in the incident with the procurement. The chairman of PPI should not be making our MDC employees cry. And nothing's been done about it. and it's just getting worse with these latest letters and emails attacking the district council and myself and my staff. I spent 9 years as your COO and 10 years, this year, 10 years as your CEO. And I thank every one of you for that support. I should be talking tonight about all the great things we're going to be talking about in the next BPW meeting. And unfortunately, we have to talk about this because it's getting worse. It's not getting better. And as I've said before, I spent 19 years trying to build succession planning. We talk about succession planning all the time. I actually have staff worried, when is Scott Jellison retiring? Because when he retires, I'm out of here. I actually have employees behind you applying for other jobs because of their fear of what happens when Scott Jellison retires and Commissioner Taylor may come after me in retribution. This is not right. I have no recourse except to publicly hope that the people around this table will hold Commissioner Taylor accountable. That's the only recourse I have. The other recourse is going to be, I'm not going to go to CHRO. I'd rather say what I'm going to say right here in front of all of you. But my staff may go to CHRO. They might sue the MDC. His rhetoric is putting the MDC at risk. I asked him and begged him to apologize to my staff during and after the events at the management study of HR. He assured me he would. He promised me he would. And then he decided not to. And he doubled down at the next PPI meeting and said, I'm not apologizing to your staff. Now, we all watched this presentation tonight, and even if he didn't think that he hurt their feelings or made them cry when they left their presentation or when they left the procurement PPI meeting back in 2021, even if he didn't think he did anything wrong, he couldn't apologize. So I don't know what else to do. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to tell all of you about what happened with procurement back in 2021, and I didn't. But it's getting worse, and it's escalating, and we're still talking about the Sandler bills through private emails identifying the fact that the CEO did something wrong and or the district council. So I don't have anything else to say except I'm hoping that someday Commissioner Taylor apologizes to my staff. I would apologize to my staff for not doing this sooner. I should have done this sooner, and I should have addressed the issue with procurement issue in 2021 with all of you, and with deep. But I was assured that Commissioner Taylor would not be doing this, and he wouldn't be doing these things again. But he's continuing to do it. Commissioner Taylor believes that we're systemically racist at the MDC, which is not true. It is not true. Rita Kelly is our guardian for the affirmative action plan. She is not systemically racist. She is not going to allow Scott Jellison to be systemically racist. She's not going to allow Jamie Harlow to be systemically racist. This woman has credibility across the country. So if employees are coming to commissioners, there's two reasons. They're looking for a political solution because they've already been to Rita. They've already been to HR, and there's no there. And they're not happy with their answer. Or, to be fair, they may be afraid to come to those entities. And that's a fair comment, and I'm okay with that. But to bring those half-truths or those things that can't be verified because Commissioner Taylor won't address them with you and with me, then how can we combat that? Everything that Commissioner Taylor might hear from an employee, Rita Kelly cannot tell you the other side of the story because would be violating the trust of the employees that come to her. I don't know what else to do. I didn't want to do this tonight, but after Commissioner Taylor wrote his letter accusing the three of us here and my staff of trying to manipulate the climate study, I said, it's over. I can't sit back and watch this anymore. Remember this, Chairman Curry sent an email and a video to all of our employees telling them how important it was to protect their confidentiality in this process. I haven't talked to the consultant at all. I had to have minimal interaction with Jamie and the consultant because they needed to contact and organize and engage with the employees. And we achieved 67% participation rate, which is great. The Yukon study only was 37. So if we're trying to hide something and manipulate the results, why would be working with the union leadership, working with the employees, working with the managers, working with the supervisors to make sure that 67% of our employees got the chance to do this study on work time. I have nothing else to say, Mr. Chairman. I apologize to this board. I apologize to this organization for having to bring this up. But it's time this committee holds Commissioner Taylor accountable. I can't do it. District Council can't do it. No one else can do it except you. Thank you.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes. Through you, Mr. Chairman. I find this at best amusing, if not ridiculous. Let me be very clear about a couple of things. All of my comments with regard to this matter have been conducted within the confines of the MDC. I have not gone to the press. I have not gone to politicians. I have not spoken to anyone in any community organizations or anything else. I have kept this strictly within the MDC family. Okay? Now, if you remember early on, when we had this flap around here, we had the newspapers, okay? We had the West Hartford, we had Newington, we had Rocky Hill, we had community people back there that were yelling and screaming. So, you know, don't tell me that basically I have been behaving in an inappropriate fashion. Secondly, I have only raised essentially factual matters. Now, you know, if you want to deal with what I've been talking about, then let's bring it to the floor here. Let's have a neutral council, okay? And we'll lay it all out on the table. Now, the other thing here, since the CEO is referring to his memo that was used by the IAC essentially as a confirmation of my outrageous and strange behavior. There are factual elements there that need to be disclosed that he did not talk about. Once again, if we want to get all of this stuff settled, then let's bring it here to the floor and let's talk about it and let's deal with it. See, don't tell me that the report of the IAC basically was dispositive of what occurred. And all of this stuff is linked together, okay? The IAC report was tabled basically because there was stuff in there that basically these folks knew that they didn't want to have out. So, you know, my attitude once again, if I'm such a bad guy, then let's hear it all here and let's resolve it. Because I'm perfectly willing to let the chips fall where they may. And I'm willing to go basically on factual information and the record. Nothing more or nothing less. Now, I'm surprised that staff is fearful. Let me tell you something. You folks sort of sit around here and you think that there's not a lot of background chatter. Well, there's a lot. People are afraid to step forward and to talk about the things that should be discussed. Now, I've had people come to me and I've said basically the following: I am not your avenging angel at the MDC. If you have issues, you have to use the process. Now, if you don't want to use the process, I can't do anything for you. Plain and simple. Now, one of the things that I have said to Mr. Jellison and to his staff people is that you better take a look at your process, because there's some concerns out there. Now, am I supposed to bring in a list of names of people? I'm not throwing people under the bus. That's not my job. My job as a commissioner, basically, is to tell people part of the process here is that you have to be an adult. And if you don't want to be an adult and step up, then you got problems. I can't help you. Once again, I'm not going to be an avenging angel. So, if you think I'm such a bad guy, okay. But I'm telling you, basically, then we're going to deal with the issues that are floating around here. And we're going to put that information on the floor so that people can see it and understand what it is that's being discussed and what's being talked about. We're supposed to be in the water and sewer business. We got off track. It started with that infamous August meeting that never occurred. See, nobody wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to talk about that. We're just going to put it aside and hopefully that people forget about it. Well, no, that doesn't work that way. We've got some issues out here that we need to resolve. Then we need to get back into the business of water and sewer. So, once again, if you have such concerns about me as a bad guy, and I'm very sorry that staff is fearful and afraid, because I don't know what I've done to create any kind of fear or concern on their part. I have raised global issues that I'm supposed to raise as a commissioner. I thought our function as MDC commissioners, basically, based upon the people that we were sent here by, to look at this organization and deal with policy. And basically look at what's happening currently, but also try to, and to a certain extent, shape what is happening out there in the future. Now, I'm not doing this because basically I got any fish to fry with people or anything like that. I was sent down here for a specific function, and I thought I was performing that function. I've been down here for more than 20 years, and all of a sudden, I'm a guy that's off the rails. So, once again, if you think I'm such a bad guy, then game on. But if game is on, then we lay it all out on the table and we deal with it. And we do it basically with a neutral party dealing and governing the process. I'm perfectly willing to do that. Because once again, I want us to get back into the business of water and sewer. But don't create this impression out here that somehow staff is at risk and they're in fear of their lives. Because if they are, they're misreading the tea leaves. And I think, quite frankly, that I'll lay my damn reputation on this table against anybody here or who's passed through here in terms of my reputation and my character. So on that note, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you. This is not the time or the place to debate the issue. Scott Jellison was addressing his concerns strictly regarding Commissioner Taylor. I gave Commissioner Taylor the opportunity to respond to Scott's comments, and now we're going to move on to reports from Chief
Chairman.
District Council. No, but we're moving on to District Council report.
I think that I have something, I'm not going to talk about this whole thing. I just have one thing I wanted to say that Scott said, and I think he maybe doesn't know, or maybe he's not aware of something, so I just wanted, one thing. It's not a problem.
Now, we're going to move on to Chief Council report. Chris?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris Stone, just a couple updates. I sent out an email on the Colebrook legislation that the Word of bill was passed. It has the amendment that helps the NBC get out of the contract with the Army Corps. But I'm bringing it up only to the extent that there are other things that we have to do. We're preparing a letter to the Army Corps, putting them on notice as required under the amendment that we want out of the contract. And the amendment says, upon receipt of that, the Army Corps shall, within 90 days, work with the NBC to relieve us of that obligation. So it's a mandatory obligation on the part of the Army Corps. I'm comfortable, based upon our past discussions with the Corps, that we'll be able to work out whatever needs to be worked out to get that finalized. So I just wanted to give you, just so we're clear, there's some more administrative work to do, but I'm very confident that we'll be able to accomplish that within that 90-day period.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask a quick question on that?
Commissioner?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Chris, I'm just curious, when could we expect, if I'm not mistaken, in the budget, we hold a line item for Colebrook? When can we expect to see that released?
Well, certainly,
Because we do have a certain number, correct?
the obligation will be officially terminated within calendar year 2025. If you want to amend your budget to release that monies during 25, you can do that. Just, you have to have a meeting to that. Finance would have to meet, and you'd have to modify the budget mid-year. Or certainly it's going to be removed from the budget come January, for 2026. So that's the latest.
So we do expect it. Okay, so it won't hit the
yes,
budget. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate it.
Chairman,
Commissioner DeBella?
how much is that reserve?
800,000, Scott, if I may.
800,000?
Yes, Scott Chelsea, 800,000. It is not completely 800,000 because they've been taking monies from our federal water customers, like the VA hospitals and such, about 40,000 a month for a number of years. So we've carried 800,000, but it's going to be much less than that because they've already been taking that funding from us directly. And as Chris said, we're waiting to see what the final bill is. They might send us a bill. We don't know what that is.
We've carried it, excuse me, Mr. Chris Stone, we've carried it and funded it as part of our budget, the $800,000, because one of the things that the Army Corps has indicated to us and that they shared with the legislators in Washington is that whatever you do and whenever you do it, there is an ongoing contract in their mind is still in effect. In our mind, it was terminated 3 years ago with a letter from us to them exercising what I consider to be our right to terminate. That all being said, Congress says settle up. That's part of the discussions we're going to have with the Army Corps. Settle up on what's owed, giving full credit for what's been paid or taken. They call it an IRS intercept for some reason, but that's what they call it, and that's what they've been doing. I'm confident that it'll be some number under the 800,000 that we've budgeted and funded, allocated and funded, but not spent. But time will tell. At $400,000, at $40,000 a month, you can figure out it's close to $500,000. And at the time that we had started to push back, with the Army Corps and demand accountings of what they're spending their money on, our money on, and was it in fact related to solely to the Colebrook Reservoir or some other enterprise by the Army Corps of Engineers. They went from a payment in the $900,000 range per year from the NDC down to $250,000, $260,000. So I think you'll see some number less than the 800 we've allocated going towards the outstanding balance. And therefore there'd be some, reserved for us. The second thing I just want to bring you up to date.
Excuse me, if you're going to switch off of.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So I'm just, when we do get to the settlement, so, I understand how they've been taking, it's almost like garnishing our wages or something.
go.
They're
Right,
just
yeah.
taking money before we ever get our hands on it.
Well, the only difference between that is they don't need a judgment to garnish. All they do
Yeah,
have to do
right.
is say, you owe me money, and they take it. So.
Yeah, so it's like IRS, they just take it, yeah.
Exactly.
So when we get to the end, I hope that, and for everybody, not just the Board of Finance, but I'd like to see, when we get to the end, I'd like to know how much we actually have paid them and what sources paid them, whether it was the VA hospital or what, something else, or directly from us. And then I also like to have some idea of what the cost of the settlement was and all the negotiations and everything that we've done. I know that we've had to, use our lobbyists, our federal lobbyists, and, in order to make this happen. And I'm glad they were there because without them, maybe we wouldn't be here. So, but what would be the total cost of the settlement too? I mean, they kind of put us through this, so we ought to know how much it costs us to do it. So,
Yeah, I can tell you, Chris Stone, I can tell you that we have our lobbyists on retainer, and what they get paid is what they get paid, regardless of what outcomes we have or what the amount of hours they put in, whatever it might be. So I don't know how much of that time, of their retainer, they dedicated to this effort, but that would be really an accounting of their time rather than any additional cost to us. It's included within the $150,000.
I understand that. I'm willing to accept your estimate of how much of that went towar's,
I get it from them, but yeah, I can do that. And it's in terms of our in-house people, there's no extra costs, both in my department and with our lobbyists. Steve Bonafonte did an excellent job on this, but he didn't get paid. Again, he gets paid a lump sum each year for his lobbying efforts, and then.
I get it.
Okay. Is that it, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
As long as, when we get to that point, we'll get a final accounting of it.
Right, yeah, okay. And the second thing I want to just give you an update, we are fully engaged in the landfill disputes on the liquid discharge fee. The 3 cases, as you know, they've now been consolidated into one case in the complex litigation docket in the Hartford Judicial District. We're going through discovery now. There's a scheduling order. All the written discovery has to be completed by March 1, depositions by May 1, and then ready for trial come the fall. So, and as I said, it's in complex litigation, so we have a judge assigned to us, and that judge oversees each and every step along the process. We just received 8,300 documents from the state, which is, it's amazing. We filed we had outside counsel file an FOI request 5 or 6 years ago. We still haven't received anything, and now it's in litigation. All of a sudden, they found 8,300 documents relating to the issue. But that being said, we're going through those documents. There's a computer program that you can call out, documents that are related directly to these cases rather than just tangentially. So we're going to go through that process, and that's the status of that. Then lastly, there was a newspaper article a week ago about a claim that was brought against the MDC by Sharon Lewis for a backup on Rutland Street. And it goes back a ways, and it goes back to 2022-23 when this board was first apprised of that issue. We then got a letter from the lawyer in late January of 2022 saying, please do not contact my client anymore. And so we stood down, and nothing's happened since then, really, She got some money from DEEP for clean-out expenses. DEEP sent us a bill asking us to reimburse them for those clean-out expenses. We said, it's not our fault, we're not paying for those cleanup, we're not gonna reimburse you, DEEP. And that was a year and 9 months ago. And we've heard nothing on that, except now the statute of limitations was running. I believe the statute ran on December 4th, 2024. So they had to act, and they filed their suit in December. And that's what made the paper. But anyway, we're going to do a write-up for all of you as to, the background. The bottom line is there was no fault on the NDC. Our lines were clear. There was a clog in the lateral that feeds the house. They asked us to turn the water off. The city of Hartford asked us to turn the water off on December 4th of 2022. We did that. We went back in January and confirmed that the water was shut off. But even when you shut off water, cold weather happens, you still have some water in the pipe, apparently, and it broke, and the water caused some damage to some personal property. That's the nature of the suit, and that's the nature of our defense. So, but we'll give you a written update over the next couple of weeks or so, and just to get you. We also have several cases that I didn't want to do it tonight, but at the February meeting, there's cases that have been filed relative to relating to streets being in disrepair, claims that our manhole covers are somehow causing injury, or that there's been backups. I think, at least generally, we'll bring those to you, not to ask you to do anything necessarily, but just so you know what's out there. And if you have any questions on anyone in particular, one may be in your town that may have an interest in, which is fine, then we'll get that list. I'll present that list during my February report. I think there was about 4 or 5 in the latter part of 2024 that came in that we should, we'll get you up to speed on. And that's it.
District Councils, could you give us a quick update on the land trust and related to the Colebrook matter?
Absolutely. Yep. We've been, Carl in my office has been doing a yeoman's job in getting through that document and negotiating with the Northwest Connecticut Land, I think it's Northwest Connecticut Land Trust and Conservancy, NCLC. And we're real close to resolving that. We now have this through, so that's, the federal legislation went through, so that's a good thing. There's some, for example, just the other day, we got a request from NCLC to tell us if we have any oil tanks on the property, and if so, how many. And that's a new one for us. That it hasn't come up for the past 9 months that we've been negotiating. But Carl, in his due diligence, has sent an email out to our people out in the field. They're going to do their due diligence and get back to us in short order. But it's those types of little issues, ticky-tack issues, that we only get one shot at entering into a conservation easement and living with that easement forever. So we want to make sure every base is covered, and as do they. So it's been an arduous process, but we're in good hands with Carl. He's doing a great job on that.
Thank you.
Chris, wasn't there $1 million or something involved in that?
I already spent that. No, there was $1 million. Yes, the understanding is, the deal is, the MOU cites the conservation easement, and the consideration for that conservation easement is $1 million.
Any other questions for District Council? Okay. Move on now to number 10. John Myrtle, are you on the line?
I am, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, Commissioners. This is John Myrtle. This is just an annual report that the ad valorem tax warrants have been served on the 8-member towns, and we have confirmation that they have received them. So that's the report.
Chair will entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And opposed, motion carried. Number 11, report, Commissioner email and IT security, possible executive session. Chris?
Yeah, well, I think Bob Schwarm is going to do the presentation. There are some sensitive IT type information that he's going to share with us under the FOI statute. That is one of the areas that can be, discussions can be held in executive session. So I would ask for a motion, and we can go through.
Before I accept the motion, I just want to remind everyone at the table that there was a form regarding the workplace violence training. Please complete it and fill it out, and Clerk Myrtle will get form out to those that were attending online, and we'll proceed from there. Chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And that would be for the reason that I explained prior to the actual motion being made, but, Scott, who?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify, and this is really important clarification. There are some FOI components to this presentation, but this is from IT staff, so it's not an FOI presentation. That's a legal issue. Staff is simply going to explain how private emails may put the MDC's IT system at risk for cybersecurity, and then how it makes it impossible or difficult for them to comply with FOI requests from legal or from John Myrtle as district clerk. So we obviously need Kelly, Chris Levesque, Bob, and Josh is doing the presentation. I know this, like Tom, you can head out of here because I don't think you have anything on the agenda. I know Chris, you do, and Jason, you do. Rita, you can leave, go home. It's gonna be a long night. And Susan, I think we need Susan for discussions on the claim. So if Susan could stay, I'd appreciate it. And Jamie, obviously, and who else? What's that?
Susan can leave.
Yeah, Susan.
For now.
Yeah, Susan, you can leave for now. I'm sorry. And Dave Ruddy, you can leave. Thank you, Dave. Dave, I think you can head home too.
Oh, yeah.
There's the independent counsel.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Hey, John?
Yes.
The independent counsel's here. Good evening. Does the statute allow her to stay in executive session?
No.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry.
But don't leave. There's more.
Yes, I understand. Thank you.
Thanks.
You can use that middle conference room if you'd like, out in the hallway there.
Okay.
Or you can go back here and, you can use it, this is,
Yeah. If you have to make a call out, just dial 9 first.
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
All right. I've got to make an inquiry as to which commissioners are on the phone. I have so far Commissioners Patel, Stuber, Desai, Gentile, Avedisian, Magnin, and Gardeau. Are there any other commissioners on the phone? Okay, and so, Julie, that's it. If I might, Mr. Chairman, just there was a motion made, seconded, and unanimously approved to come out of executive session. They've done that. And now, in terms of a motion relative to that agenda item.
Yeah. Chair will entertain a motion to direct IT to eliminate the auto sharing within.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, before you finish the motion, could we just move on to we have such a large agenda.
I'm asking that someone make a motion to direct IT within 30 days from today to remove the auto.
40.
I would prefer that we not address it tonight at all, for your original suggestion, that it was only on here for discussion. Come back with a motion 30 days from now, and let's see what IT does the next 30 days. I still have a lot of questions.
I call for a motion. I think it's an extremely important thing, and I call for a motion for IT to work with individual commissioners and pull the function off as soon as possible while they're working with individual commissioners
Motion is within 30 days is what I'm recommending.
within 30 days.
I'd like to amend the motion to 60 days. 60 days? 30 days is going to go by so fast. It's a busy time of year. It's crazy. 60 days is not going to hurt anybody.
It's an important issue.
30 days.
All right,
Well, it's been
let's-
6
no back-
years.
No back and forth debate, please go through the chair. The motion has been made, was there a second to the main motion?
Second.
All right, an amendment to the main motion was made to go from 30 days to 60 days. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Okay, we'll vote first on the,
Any discussion on the amendment?
okay, is there any discussion? All right, we'll vote first on the amendment to 60 days. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed? Wow, I can't count. Let's do raise of hands. All those in favor of 60 days?
And who's on the, anybody on the phone?
Anybody on the phone? Oh, Maureen has her hand up.
Maureen, is she asking a question?
You have a count?
Or, can you ask Maureen if she's voting or is she asking for a question?
Maureen?
Thank you.
Commissioner Desai, Commissioner Stuber, and Commissioner can all have their hands raised.
Okay.
I think you need to take a roll, this is Commissioner Gardo, you need to take a roll call for the people on the phone.
Well, I think it's
vote
clear
no.
we have
You have
we have enough that the amendment passes. So now we have a motion on the floor as amended to direct IT to remove within 60 days.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
60 days tomorrow.
Okay. With that, Chair will entertain a motion to recess to allow Bureau of Public Works to come to order.
So moved.
We should reinforce the issue that the commissioners should stay to listen to.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
In your seats.
We are in recess, and Bureau of Public Works, it's all yours, Al.
We'll call the
Doesn't matter because if you aren't,
special meeting
it was going to be heard at the district.
of the Bureau of Public Works, January 13th. I can't tell you what time it is, but we're in the recess of the district board. I'm sorry, you said
7:55.
7:55. Thank you, Commissioner Lester. Thank you, sir. We have a few items that we have to address in terms of approval, and it is the case that I will ask Scott to go over each one. If he has a staff member here who will do that instead, we'll just take them in order. We do have minutes to approve. I have to be assured that we do have a quorum to approve those minutes.
Good question. Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Was that November 18th?
It was, yes, November 18th, yes, sir. So we'll call for a motion on approving the minutes. So move. Second? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition, corrections? Very good, thank you. The items that need approval are the following. We have to address the modification of the EPA consent decree. That would be item B. Scott, if you want
If I
to
could
say anything,
Yes.
or,
just very quick.
yes.
Unless the committee determines otherwise, I'm not going to ask for, nor Scott, executive session on items B, C, or D,
Okay,
even though it says possible executive session under B. Those can go without. The only one we need on is item E. So with that.
Yeah, thank you. And so I'm going to be really quick here. As you know, we've had a significant change in our consent order, our integrated planning, all the work that we did in North Hartford. And because of all of those changes that we made in July of 2023, there have been dates on both the consent order side and on the consent decree side that had to change as associated with that, those changes in projects. And it's really that simple. It's simply changing dates of projects. We can get into the specifics. I've got Jason here, Waterbury, who can talk about those, but without belaboring the point, the consent decree is simply changing dates on projects. And are we taking these one at a time?
I was going to ask for a ruling.
Okay.
Take them one at a time.
Okay. So on the consent decree, Jay, and in a very short duration, can you just highlight the changes to the consent decree? Consent decree, remember, is EPA, so it's outside Hartford. It's non-Hartford projects. It's all the projects outside of the Hartford CSO
So
system.
you can just go to the next slide.
Real quick, Jay.
Yep. All right, so consent decree is on the right. Jason Waterbury, Assistant Manager of Engineering. Consent decree is on the right. The only changes to this, like Scott said, were date changes. All these projects were already projects we had proposed to EPA that they approved. The first project, West Hartford SCS, the only reason it has a date on there is because that was an active project and it was also living in the consent order world. So all we did was document that the date of what we were really doing with that project, matching the consent order. Everything else has been punted from either phase 2 or phase 1 or phase 2 of the IP into phase 2 with an undetermined date, with the plan that EPA is fully on board with, that when we go through the affordability analysis as part of the long-term control plan update, which is due in the end of 28, we will establish dates for all these projects.
Perfect.
And there will be, Mr. Chairman, this happens, right? Over the course of the next 20 years, these dates will slowly change because of things that occur. But we've done this consistently in changing dates to be practical as it relates. Right, exactly.
Yeah, so just,
That's a question?
yes, sir. Commissioner Salemi.
Thank you. I just, with respect to the changes, if it's just the dates and shifting when we're going to do things and stuff, then I can't think, but, is there, before we get into all of them, is there any of these that's going to have an effect on the dollars that are appropriated for this project? Is it going to require an increase in appropriating, or is it just moving it from one day to a different day to do it?
So the reason we deferred the majority of them was actually to keep our clean water project charge rate within its forecast. If we had not moved the majority of these consent decree projects and had kept them, some of them that were in phase 1, the clean water project charge would have had to jump up above the original forecast when we added in when we moved up that North Hartford work. So the plan, to answer your question, it's not forecast to increase any clean water project charge rate.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't asking about the charge, the clean water charge, what I'm talking about, the total cost of the project. There's a dollar amount on that, okay? So if that's changing, I think it's going to require something other than just us talking about it here. So, I think that as long as that's not changing, we're just moving stuff around. That was my question, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that.
Very good. So we're looking at item B, looking for a motion to move that item forward, and approval regarding the EPA consent order.
Move with adoption.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you. We'll pass it unanimously. Item C. Same situation, more or less, with DEEP consent order. And by the way, the reason why we're doing this meeting tonight is these are time-sensitive situations. So we are trying to move it pretty much quickly.
The commissioner's name.
Yes, and if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
So again, I have Jay here to explain the details, but again, very similar. We've changed some dates on projects. Most importantly, to the benefit of the city of Hartford and the MDC, we had a deadline date to complete the drainage study for the North Branch of the Park River, and that deadline date was, what was the date, Jay?
It was the drainage study was the end of 24.
24. So the DEEP has given us and the city an extra year to complete that study. And the benefit of that is we're working closely with the city, the mayor's office, and James Wolf, wearing two hats.
It was the same slide.
That we're trying to find a solution As I mentioned before, we need the river to dump our new clean stormwater from our separation projects into the river. The city is looking on how they can fund the dredging, so to speak, or the upgrades to the river. We're working together. We would like, our goal would be to use the river, because then we can avoid spending extra money here to either pump water or to find a new outfall to the river. So there's a huge benefit to the city of Hartford, a huge benefit to all of our other towns if we can resolve this issue. We're working closely with the city to do that. We're looking for funding from EPA and the state for that work. And we'd like to develop an MOU that outlines short-term, long-term processes to actually address the river issues, which would give MDC confidence and comfort that we could use the existing infrastructure that's already there up at Weaver High School, the 108-inch pipe, to discharge our water to. So I'm very positive about our conversations with the city on this. This is really important, and this extra year gives us a chance to work through those details. So again, Jay, you want to add anything, or?
Just a couple notes. The expedited sewer, that was all of this has been presented to the public, I want to say at least 3 times at quarterly and annual meetings. The expedited sewer, really that changed because we added scope to those 2 projects, Windsor Street and Westland Street. And then the next project in there, that 18-inch brick, that was basically a project that got split into 2, where half of it is going to be well in advance of the deadline, and the other half we needed to collect more data on. And really, DEEP had no objections to any of this. They did in their letter point out to us that, positively pointed out to us that we've increased our private property work with the North Hartford work from original plan of 160 properties to now 258 properties within those expedited sewer projects. So they saw that as a positive. We've already done 94 properties out of the original forecast, which puts us almost at 60%, a year ahead of schedule. And we've got 2 of them, Durham and Woodstock Branford, which have been documented as already done. So DEEP was on board because they saw all the work we're doing already. So.
And just to reiterate, this Windsor Street project is very, very important. We're working with the city of Hartford. The city of Hartford received a $4.5 million grant to deal with flooding on North Main Street. And the Star Hardware lawsuit, as we've talked about. We've talked with the city and with district council and trying to find a resolution, not just for the lawsuit, but we have said to the city that there's an ability, a roughly $12 million project, that if the city were to execute along with our Windsor Street project, we could actually eliminate the need for the detention basin at Stowe Village, which caused the overflow to Star Hardware. We have asked that if we can make this work and we do a joint project or some way, somehow do 2 projects together, we would be willing, MDC would be willing to accept that additional stormwater from that area, from this detention basin, and we believe technically we can eliminate the need for the detention basin forever. So this is a huge win for the city. It's a huge win for the residents. It's a huge win for the MDC. We want to have a conversation with the Star Hardware lawsuit and protect the MDC, the city of Hartford, and the housing authority from that lawsuit. So it's really, it's a great project, and it's a win, a huge win for the city of Hartford. So we're working on that as well. Jake, I'm sorry. Is there anything else?
That was basically, that's all I had to say to keep
Okay.
it brief.
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Commissioner Salemi.
Thank you. The sort of same question as before, and Scott, I think that if we can do the things that you just talked about, I'd certainly be, those are like, exceptional opportunities for us if we can do them. My only question is about the funding. So any vote that we take tonight is not changing the funding. We're not adding funds to these projects.
Correct.
And by voting for this, we're not making this project cost any more. That's my real question.
Correct.
We're not going to make this project cost any more than it originally did, so that we're going to have to appropriate money a year from now to do that. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
that's my question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. So we're looking for a motion to put forward item 12C on our agenda.
Move adoption.
Move
Thank you.
adoption.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Again, unanimous. And by the way, I want to make sure that the record is clear that we have been determined, it has been determined that there is a quorum, so that we're on track correctly. We don't want to miss any little thing. So the next item D, 12D, is to approve an MOU with the city of Hartford regarding the MS4. And again, I'll ask Scott to.
Thank you. And I'm gonna whiz through this really quick, and if there's any questions, Chris Levesque is here to talk about it. So let's just go back in time. Remember, 2016, the state of Connecticut issued these permit called MS4 permits and required all municipalities to comply. The MDC was not considered under that permit because the city of Hartford was looked at as the owner, the DPW, so to speak, of the streets and all those good things. So ever since 2017, we've really been working with the city of Hartford, and to no avail until the last year and a half, where we were mandated by EPA for the city of Hartford and the MDC to get together and develop a co-application for this permitting process. And we went through 2 rounds of mediation with the EPA provided mediator, and we are very, very successful. The MDC, the punchline in all of this MS4 is the MDC wanted to see the city of Hartford clean the streets as often as possible, so our catch basins did not fill up more frequently, and therefore we had to clean our catch basins more often. The new administration has done an amazing job in cleaning the streets. They're cleaning the streets twice a month, and it's made a tremendous difference, not just in the littering, but in the street flooding associated with heavy rainstorms. And the MDC, we simply said to the city, and the city said to us, the city agreed, we will clean the catch basins like we're doing right now under an MOU. So every street, twice a month. And the MDC agreed, we'll clean our catch basins, basically 3/4 of the catch basins every year, and check the rest. And there's a lot more detail in the MOU, but that's really the heart of the problem. And I am very happy, our staff is very happy. I think the city is very happy with that resolution. There's a lot of detail that goes into the reporting, all kinds of details, but I'm happy to go through that if anybody has any questions. But that is truly the heart of the MS4 permitting. You got to clean the streets. To what level do you clean the streets? And then how often do you clean the catch basins? And we've resolved that issue. And I would call on Commissioner Wolf to make sure you would agree with that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so it's a tremendous benefit. It's a tremendous benefit to the city of Hartford residents for this resolution. We do have, EPA has asked us over the last weekend they want to do a signing of this MOU. It's historic. They have told us this is the first co-applicant MS4 permit in the country. No one else has done this before. And that's from EPA's words, not from ours. So they are very excited about this. They want to take and be involved in taking credit for this. So we are going to have we are going to have a contract signing, MOU signing at 11:45 at Barber Street Outreach Office 179. No, no, we're going to have it there. But we've jumped through hoops. Nick Salemi and Julie McLaughlin have jumped through hoops with the city staff, press releases and banners and all those good things. Have that event tomorrow at 11:45. And everyone is invited, all the commissioners are invited. We did send out an email, Nick and Julie sent out an email late today to everybody, including all the stakeholders that were invited at the ribbon cutting. I know it's short notice, but we will be there. I think Chairman and Chairman of BPW is going to be coming. I think Bill's coming, Vice Chair. Anybody else would like to come?
If they approve.
If, only if you approve it tonight.
Are we gonna have a parking problem up there?
Yes, we will. So, yeah, there will be parking problems. I've asked, James and I talked this weekend, we talked this morning, and we're gonna have, police there, and we're gonna do everything we can. There's on-street parking, but the majority of the parking on the construction zone is taken up by laydown areas. But we'll find a spot for somebody, and we'd, it's a small office, so we're gonna most likely do the signing in the office, and then there's a podium. The city's providing a podium where people can speak on behalf of the city, the MDC, EPA, and DEEP. So everybody's been invited, and everyone's welcome. So
179 Barber?
yes,
What's the date?
tomorrow at quarter of 12.
Do we have a fiscal, note on this thing? Is it, we're gonna get all the money to do all these things?
What do you mean?
No. Is there a fiscal consideration to us doing the catch basins?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah, so there is. There's an expense to the city, there's an expense to the MDC, but the benefit is, as we've said, MDC has said forever, the MS4 permit is really a proactive permit. The goal is to not allow garbage, debris, oils, and contaminants to get to the catch basin. And so by the city cleaning the streets twice a month, as they're doing now, we're going to spend less time cleaning catch basins. So we've talked a lot about the expense of cleaning the catch basins, but this solution the end result will be MDC will not have to clean the catch basins as often as we're doing now. And so we save money. And not only do we save money, more importantly, and I've used this before, August 19th of 2021, we had a major flood, 3 feet of water on Albany Avenue. And July 5th of 2023, we didn't. And we had a 250-year storm in August of 21, and we had a 150-year storm in July of 23. And they're not much different. We would not recognize the difference. You're talking about a couple of inches. You're talking about 7 inches of rain in a 4 to 5 hour period versus 5 inches of rain in the same period. So there was not the flooding on Albany Avenue that occurred in August. And that's because the streets were clean. So it's going to save MDC money, time, and energy. We don't have to spend time going taking pictures around the city anymore.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Building stainless steel.
Yes.
Commissioner Van Dyke.
Commissioner Van Dyke, I just want to know with this is we had some prior obligations that we were billing the city for cleaning of the catch basins prior to. Is that within this agreement? Is that wiped out? Are we looking at having that, is that accounts receivable still on our books? And will there be any cost to the city for cleaning catch basins if we have to clean them twice a year? I know that was a big stickler at the end of the time, and I just want to know where that stands, and then I have one more question.
Okay, so the issue about pick a number, $600,000 was not part of this agreement. The issue about moving forward with cleaning the catch basins, the MOU gives the ability. It doesn't mandate MDC, but it does give us the ability to clean catch basins that are owned by the city. Now, I would tell you that the sorry, not the Raftellus report, thank you, Kleinfelder report, identified that the MDC owns about 50 some odd, 56, 58% of the sewer system in Hartford, and the city owns 8%. So the rest of it is unknown or DOT, and we're gonna work, as part of the MOU, we have to work out those details, and we got a working group that will actually define what that is. The city of Hartford could choose and ask MDC, we'd like you to clean our catch bases, our 8%, or whatever number they are. And we could choose to do that if so the board chose. If we don't, they'd have to clean them themselves. So there's an opportunity in that discussion as we start to build the details around how we actually execute the MOU together, and addressing that 600,000.
Okay, so that is the work group's work to address the 600
No.
and to figure out.
No, the work group is really, there's a lot of administrative stuff, right? Communication, all this stuff. But the working group is our first goal is to identify who owns what.
Okay, Scott, wait,
Yep.
because I just want to make sure, because it's getting late. So
Yep.
I just want to make sure I understand this. Is the $600,000 tomorrow, after we vote on this, is it going to be on our books?
Yes.
For receivables?
Yes.
And you, as the administration of MDC, will be working with the city to figure out how we resolve that so we're no longer carrying it or it's paid?
I'll be working with this board to determine that.
That's, okay, I'm gonna let that go for now and I'll just contact you later about it because to me, that's not a real answer. And I have one last question, Mr. Chair, that I just want to make sure of. Since we are going to be having a lot of people and potentially press tomorrow, has somebody in our community relations reached out to Norris's Barber Shop, which is on Barber Street, which is the building that we're in, just to make sure he is aware that this is happening? Because that is a small area and he is a small business. And I want to make sure somebody's touching base with him. It's
Yes,
Marcus.
I don't know if Nick
Can we
is
just
here.
make sure that happens
Yes,
tomorrow morning?
yes.
And he's invited?
Absolutely.
Send in an
We
invitation.
sent,
We don't want 1,000 cars
No.
showing up and then he doesn't know what's going on.
we sent an email out to everybody, which includes Mr. Norris, that we're having this event tomorrow. So yes, I will
Somebody can
verify.
reach out tomorrow
Yes,
morning. I'd
absolutely.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And all those agreements have,
Commissioner Isabella?
all the agreements have to be mutually agreeable.
Correct.
So,
Mr.
need
Chair?
Both parties.
Mr. Chairman?
yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Salemi here. So it's a technical question, and I'm sorry, we got to back up into that. But I did go through, all the attachments that came with these issues. It was literally hundreds of pages of stuff. So, and I don't know why, but I made a note to myself to ask about what I saw in there that had something to do with the elimination of the combined sewer overflows at Albany Avenue, Folly Brook, and Weathersfield Cove. Is that in the consent decree, or is that in this part, that in the MS4 thing? I'm just not, maybe I picked the wrong spot. So
You know what he's talking about, Chris?
Yeah, so Folly Brook would be in the consent decree. Any overflows that are being eliminated or reduced will be in the consent order. So consent order is applicable to the combined sewer system. The consent decree is applicable to the sanitary sewer.
Right.
Yeah, but I guess, how does it relate to MS4?
Oh,
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure, I'm
Okay.
not sure
Yeah,
that.
no, it
so-
doesn't. No, it has.
So it's a good question. There's always a lot of misunderstandings around MS4, but MS4 is truly separated storm system. The combined sewer system is treated differently, so those outfalls are permitted differently than MS4 general permit. So MS4 general permit is 100% separated storm outfalls.
But it has nothing to do with CSOs.
Correct.
Okay.
100%.
All right, that was my question, but, so backing up then just for a second, it's in the consent decree that we're expected to eliminate those CSOs.
Yes, along the north branch of the Park River and the area to the
Also
cove as
Folly
well.
Brook, Folly
Yes.
Brook too, and.
But
All
it's
right,
not
thank you.
part of the MS4 permit.
That's
Yeah,
consent order.
I said I might have had that confused.
Yeah, that's okay.
And I apologize for
That's
that.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you. We need,
Oh, we don't have a motion yet?
yes, right now.
Oh, I'll wait for the motion.
Okay. We need a motion to
Adoption.
move forward the approval of an MOU having to do with the MS4.
So move.
Thank you. Second,
Second.
somewhere. All right. I'm sorry, sir.
Ask a question?
Absolutely. You're the chair.
Call him out of order.
Actually, everyone else is out of order. I just want to point out that, first, I'm extremely pleased with the new and improved working relationship that the city of Hartford and MDC have. It makes everyone's life so much easier, but Scott didn't mention how the negotiations proceeded, and that everyone at the table, and especially MDC and the city of Hartford, they went in, when did this start?
March of March, and then just recently before Thanksgiving. So March of '24, right? We started in March of '24, and then we had a 2-day, 3-day sessions in March, and then we had another follow-up just before Thanksgiving.
All right, my point is that everyone went to the table to negotiate in good faith, and during all that time, nothing changed. In the end, I think that the final work product benefits everyone. No one got exactly what they wanted, but in the end, it's a good deal for all parties involved. So I just wanted to point that out.
We have a motion on the table. Looking for a second. I believe we had a second. With that, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, passes unanimously. Item number 12E. 12E is a potential settlement, so you know what that means, Chris?
Yeah, this is executive session, definitely. So you can entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Absolutely.
I can't make it.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
There you go. Thank you, Dan.
Second.
And in the,
Bob, you can head out. Thank you. Thank you. Jay, you can head out. Yep. This is Chris and Kelly, you're welcome to head out if you'd like.
Not on the district meeting. Should it not be?
If you're not on the committee, you have to leave too, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I know.
number D, 14D.
Commissioners not on the committee leave?
Mr. Chair, if I could, you do not have to leave unless it's.
I'm sorry, it is.
No.
I got you.
So he's free to stay or leave.
He was misunderstood you.
You got the people, you all set with the people?
Oh, sure. I have no problem with.
Chairman Hoffman?
Yes, sir.
All set with the people that are staying, Chris Levesque, Susan Negrelli,
Kelly Shane.
Shane, myself, and Mr. Jellison.
Okay.
And then I still have John and the other commissioners that I'm.
Do you need me to read the list off again, or no?
No, I think
Okay.
they're all still there. I'm just gonna pull them in.
All set?
Okay.
And
Move to come out of executive session.
Graham's winning?
Second.
Ram 20. Okay.
all in favor?
No.
Second.
All in favor is unanimous.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Aye, aye, aye.
Back into the rest of Public Works, special meeting.
Well, we voted to come out of executive session.
We
need to
did.
Vote on that item,
We're gonna vote on
the item.
because now we're in session.
Now we're in regular session.
Move adoption.
Second.
Move adoption of 12E. Okay, thank you. And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor of 12E approval?
Do we have,
Yes.
can we have a discussion? I mean,
What?
What, sir?
just a question, but, you know,
I'm sorry, yes.
Your opportunity, okay. So, I just a quick question. I mean, is there an expectation or a reason that we need to do this, like, now? I mean, I just want, is there like a deadline on this or something like that? Or, I know we're trying to get it done as fast as we can, but it's,
There's no,
you know,
no court-imposed deadline. We do have a hearing on a motion for summary judgment scheduled for February 2025. There's preparation and expense associated with that in advance of that court hearing. We have ongoing discovery that's got to take place. We have more depositions to be had as part of discovery. So there's court-related things that while they put pressure on your wallet, right? There's just more expenses to incur. And in fairness to, as part of the mediation, one of the ways we were able to do this is that we were able to act expeditiously. It didn't have a deadline. I don't want to mislead anybody. We don't have a deadline. We have to do this by today. But we did commit to working expeditiously to get this before this body at its January meeting, which originally was the 6th, and then it's now the 13th. So that's what's that's what's motivating us to do this now.
All right, I understand that. My only concern beyond that is that, that this is strictly associated with the claim of Kenny Obayashi and doesn't settle anything else with our consultants, partners, any of the rest of this stuff and everything. I mean, this is strictly with their claim.
That's correct.
But that's just.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner DeBella.
Chris, wouldn't it also concern negotiation with DEEP relative to change order?
Well, if this were approved tonight, the change order is being finalized. It's probably going to be final this week, I would think, right? That draft.
That creates.
By the way, it's 6 change orders altogether, correct?
Yes, 7.
Seven change orders go to DEEP for their review. There's going to be a back and forth with DEEP about, that issue. They're well aware that's coming. They're prepared to do their analysis in relatively short order. Most importantly, Kenny Obayashi knows that they have to wait, that DEEP's got to weigh in on this thing. And so hopefully within 60 days from today, it'll be completed. But DEEP's, it's up to DEEP. Right, DEEP won't do anything until we submit the change order to them, and I wasn't gonna submit the change order to them unless you approved it, so.
The feds won't.
They won't.
No.
All set? Commissioner Salemi? All set?
Yeah, I'm also.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Commissioner Taylor.
Just very quickly, is there any interest accrual on this? Or is this basically we approve the 51 million and basically the clock does not tick on this in terms of whether or not we have to cough up any interest?
There's no clock ticking on interest on the 51. I will suggest that if there was an unreasonable delay, like to September to make the payment, I'd say you might get a claim, but no, there's no. Good question, but there's no.
Thank you, Attorney Stone. At this point, I believe we're ready to vote out this approval. Hearing no objection. I thought we need to have that motion made. I didn't think we did. But
It's been made and seconded.
made and seconded. Okay.
Yeah, we made it.
Very good. So all in favor of approving? Thank you.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objection? Hearing none. We're looking for the magic motion.
Move to adjourn.
Done.
Without objection.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
it's your baby.
No,
All right.
that's public works.
Hopefully those same issues will move along a little bit quicker. Chair will entertain a motion to go back into special session.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, number 14. I'll wait for Chairman Hoffman to take his seat.
Make one motion to approve all 4 items?
Well, I can appreciate that for moving along quickly. I think these really, just by the importance, need to be taken separately. Well, there should be no additional discussion, since everybody at the table has already had that discussion. So, Mr. Chairman Hoffman, I entertain a motion from you as the Chair of Public Works for approvals of item 14, consideration potential action, modification of 206 EPA consent decree.
I'm sorry.
Say yes.
Say I move.
I'm not the chairman of government.
Oh, you're the chairman of Public Works.
Public Works.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
Just this.
my answer, yes.
Heck, we want to hear.
Second.
Oh, and
A.
A, okay. Approval, A, 12A.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 14B, approval of modification of Connecticut Deep Consent Order. Chairman
I
Hoffman.
move.
Yes, move it.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. 14C, approval of memorandum of understanding with the City of Hartford, MS4, general permit. Chairman Hoffman.
14C, move it.
Second.
Discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 14D, potential settlement of pending litigation.
14D, move it.
I move.
Further discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. Move on to number 15, Chair recognizes Chairman Bazzano.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion.
What is it? The lobbyist, we hired the lobbyist.
Lobbyists, yeah.
Legislative consent.
anything done or no?
No discussion? No. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carried. Number 16, consideration potential action donation of Lane Manufacturing Sawmill to TA Hungerford Memorial Museum Association.
Real quick, Chris.
Put up. Second.
Is there a motion?
Move it, Chris.
Chris?
Sir, Chris Levesque with the MDC. MDC has a Lane Manufacturing Sawmill on its property off of Covey Road in Burlington, Connecticut, so that's on our Neatbog watershed. We were approached by the president of TA Hungerford Memorial Museum Association, nonprofit in Harrington, Connecticut, who has specific interest in trying to preserve this sawmill as a demonstration area, not to turn it to an active sawmill, but to demonstrate the area's reliance on the timber harvesting as well as the wood milling industry in this area. So they had formally request that they, MDC, look to donate it to the museum, and we're looking for board approval to do that. Again, no cost to us. MDC will look to remove it. It is currently right now sort of a hazard. It's on the side of a road that's publicly accessible. So we would like to remove it and then provide it to the association for ultimately refurbishment and showing off the sawmill.
Thank you, Chris. Question? All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed, motion carries. 17, opportunity for general public comments. Anyone in the public would like to address? We haven't worn you out, you're still here. Thank you.
Nothing for me, thank you.
Commissioner request for consideration of future agenda items.
Chairman Curry, if I could, just one quick, and I know it's tired, this is way too big of an agenda, I think, for this board to handle for this many hours, and I would really appreciate it if in the future we could lighten the load a little bit, because this is a long meeting tonight, and I think some of these topics need further
This is
discussion.
an anomaly, and I understand, and I feel the same way. I blame it on Scott. Alan Huffman.
Yes. So I feel badly about asking this at this point, but I think it's a simple yes or no answer. The presentation that we had tonight by Paul, I lost his last name, has that same presentation or something similar been given or will be given to the general universe of our staff?
Our staff receives all this training on an annual or semi-annual basis. It will not be the same presentation, but they do receive a presentation. A workplace violence presentation would really take 2 days from 9 to 3 with a break for lunch and maybe a break in the morning and afternoon. So it's a lot more intense than what we got.
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's it.
Any other questions or comments?
Sure.
If not,